Good evening and welcome to the council meeting for Monday, May 25th, 2026. I will point out that the comment was made up here that the best behaved people in the room leading up to the gavel bang were the students. So round of applause for the students in the room today. At this time, may we all please rise for the playing of the national anthem and a moment of reflection. Please be seated. At this time, I will look to Councillor Phillips to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The land on which council meets today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabeg, and Attawandaronk, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many Indigenous peoples made up of First Nation, Inuit, and Métis. The Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement should remind us of our responsibility to ensure the Dish, the territories on which we live and work, is never emptied, and that we take care of the land and its inhabitants in a way that ensures its future sustainability.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. And good evening, everybody, and welcome to the council meeting for May 25th, 2026. Appreciate all those who are tuning in at home. I'll begin with some sad news. It is with sadness that I report that Ronald Dave McCabe, a retired St. Catharines employee with 29 years of service, passed away on May 11th. Ron was a QP 150 employee, and his last position with the city was as a truck driver. All city flags have been lowered over the weekend to honor Ron's memory. In terms of local events, the last of the Folk Arts Festival open houses came to a close yesterday, marking the end of a great month of culture, food, dance, and community. I was fortunate to attend the majority of the open houses this year, and through it all, one thing remains clear: St. Catharines is a diverse, vibrant, and welcoming city. As we celebrate 150 years of St. Catharines and reflect on our theme of our common ground, the festival reminds us that the strength of our community comes from the many cultures, traditions, and stories that come together to shape our city. I'm proud to live in a community that continues to grow more diverse while always finding ways to celebrate and connect with one another. Thank you to the many volunteers who made this year's festival possible, and thank you to all the cultural clubs and groups who opened their doors to the community to celebrate together. The carousel's open. On Saturday, May 16th, the carousel officially opened for the season, a true sign of spring, almost summer. I joined councillors Mako and Williamson along with the Friends of the Carousel to officially cut the ribbon on another season of fun. It's now open on weekends and holidays from May 16th to July 1st, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. July 1st, the carousel will be open daily until September the 7th from 11 to 8. And a special thanks to the Friends of the Carousel for all the hard work they put in over the off-season to keep the characters looking beautiful and ready for another season. I was pleased to attend the Ontario Home Builders Association's Chairs Dinner to connect with leaders from across Niagara's building industry and to discuss the future of housing in our region. St. Catharines continues to build momentum when it comes to housing, with 1,040 permits issued for new dwellings in 2025 and already 500 plus units permitted for this year. I want to thank the Niagara Home Builders Association and the Ontario Home Builders Association for their partnership as we continue creating more housing opportunities across our community. Earlier this month, I had the pleasure of attending Aspira Heatherwood's First Responder Appreciation Breakfast. It was great to see the community come together to recognize our first responders and thank them for everything they do. And I want to thank Aspira Heatherwood for hosting this event. On Saturday, I was pleased to join Councillor Lindell to bring greetings at the Canadian Women's Disc Golf event taking place at the course in Richard Pierpoint Park. There were players from across the province as well as many attending from Western New York. The field also included world-ranked disc golfer Elaine King. I want to thank the organizer, Andrea Michaud, for bringing the event to the city and for her passion in advocating for women's disc golf in our sporting landscape. Also on Saturday, I was pleased to join the community at the 19th annual Rankin Run along with Councillors Mako and Ratzlaff. I will say I was absolutely impressed at the number of people who showed up, even though the rain was coming in sideways. The impact of the event has been incredible over the years, with almost $13 million raised and given directly to cancer care organizations across Niagara. So special thank you to the Rankin family and the Rankin Construction for their continued support they've shown this event in the community over the years. I also want to recognize Marianne Edwards for her dedication and care that continues to guide the event forward. And thank you to everyone who braved the rain and chilly temperatures to come together to raise much needed funds for our community. Earlier this month, I was pleased to join Councillor Stevens for the grand opening of a new Dairy Queen located at 286 Bunting Road. Congratulations goes out to owner K.R. Patel and family on opening this new DQ location, and thank you for investing in St. Catharines. I will just let councillors know, if you are a fan of the Blizzard, there is something new called the Blizzard Royale. I was not aware of what this is. They hollow out the middle of the Blizzard and then they pour in either fudge or peanut butter, thus ensuring fudge and peanut butter in every single bite. It's a bit weird to eat it at 9:30 in the morning, but I did. I took that for the team, and I want to thank the folks at Dairy Queen. It's called a Blizzard Royale. Apparently it's been around for years, and I don't care. I just discovered it. It's new to me. Earlier this month, I was pleased to join Councillors Mako and Williamson at the grand opening of Locanta Mediterranean Cafe. Locanta is a locally owned cafe that offers Mediterranean and Turkish-inspired food, baked goods, and coffee. Business recently expanded into a new location of 50 Lakeport Road to accommodate its growing customer base and create a larger space for the community to gather. So congratulations to Lizanne Lauter and Tolga Baikala on this exciting milestone. Earlier this month, I was also pleased to join Shane and the team at Bright Pours Cafe to celebrate 1 year of business. Bright Pours is a cozy coffee shop located in the heart of the city in the Martindale Road Plaza. They are known for serving high-quality coffee, matchas, and more. Thank you to Shane and the team for investing and growing your business in St. Catharines. Cheers to many more years of success in coffee and community, and thank you for locating your shop about 35-second walk from my house. Last week, I was pleased to join Councillor Stevens for the grand opening of Specsavers, located in the Real Canadian Superstore on Louth. This is the third Specsavers I have helped open in the last 3 years, with previous locations opened in the Penn Centre and the Fairview Mall. So congrats to James Ranger and the entire Specsavers team for their growth and continued investment in St. Catharines. Also last week, I joined Councillor Stevens to celebrate the grand opening of Axon Pain Clinic, located at 577 Ontario Street. It's always exciting to welcome new healthcare services to our community, especially ones focused on helping residents improve their quality of life and access the care they need close to home. Thank you to the entire Axon Pain Clinic team for choosing to invest in St. Catharines and for the work you'll be doing to support people across Niagara. On Saturday, I joined Councillor Lindell for the grand reopening of Pho Tan, located at 165 Hartzell Road. Pho Tan is known for their authentic Vietnamese food, with every detail designed to bring Vietnam closer to you, from flavorful bowls of traditional pho to carefully crafted dishes that capture the heart of Vietnamese cuisine. We were treated to a delicious spread of fresh rolls, mango salad, pad thai, and of course, delicious pho. So congratulations to the new owners, and thank you for investing in St. Catharines. Some upcoming events. The Niagara River Lions have officially kicked off their 2026 season. This Friday, the team will raise another championship banner to the rafters at Meridian Centre as they kick off their home game schedule and their quest to bring a three-peat to the city. And congratulations to new head coach Kimball McKenzie, who got his first win this weekend. On June 4th, the Canadian Federation of University Women is hosting their second annual fundraiser, Drawn to Niagara. The event will take place at the Hare Wine Company and will include food, drinks, dancing, and more. All funds raised will support food security scholarships as well as agencies that assist women and children. For tickets, visit cfuwstcatharines.org. And on June 13th, join us for Doors Open St. Catharines from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at facilities across the city. Doors Open is a free event that invites the public to discover unique heritage, cultural, educational, and business locations across the city. With 19 incredible sites opening their doors, this is a wonderful opportunity to get to know your city. So join us as we celebrate the past, we honor the past, celebrate the present, and help shape the future of a vibrant St. Catharines together. For all the details, check out the city website and search Doors Open. Before I open things up to my council, I did just want to read a statement that I have provided to members of the media. Last week, the city received a number of complaints related to the property located at 282-285 Ontario Street. Upon receiving those complaints, as a matter of course, the city conducted an inspection of the property. Following that inspection, it was determined that orders would be served on the owners of the property to make all necessary repairs to ensure public safety or to demolish the buildings. The details of the orders can be found on the city's 282-285 Ontario Street website. I want to thank those in the community who raised these concerns with the city and to assure them that the property owners will be held accountable to the orders that have been issued. I know that the process of having this property redeveloped has been lengthy and frustrating for many. I share much of that frustration. For over a decade, a great deal of time, energy, and money has been invested in this site by everyone involved. And while the orders issued today will not resolve the issues that have prevented redevelopment to date, I hope they will serve as the starting point for a constructive path forward. In the meantime, the city will continue to work to support the future development of this property for the betterment of the community. At this time, we will open things up to members of council. Councillor Lindell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for mentioning the disc golf. I just wanted to add on to that to Director of Municipal Works, Mr. Murata, and his staff. What an impeccable job they did in helping Richard Pierpoint Park look so amazing. Everyone was complimenting how beautiful the park is, and I know that's because the guys were working so hard for the week leading up to it, especially with the rain and the water and the puddles and things like that. And of course, the bathroom was really important as well, and we appreciate that. I also want to thank Director Christie. Nobody knows how much stress that man has gone through in the last 2 weeks to make this an amazing event as well, and we appreciate your hard work, Director Christie. Also on June the 6th at Glengarry Park, there is an Art in the Park that's going to be happening between 2 and 7 p.m. It's going to feature all kinds of different artists and crafts and sales. So if everybody can get down to Glengarry Park, it's over by the Penn Center, it would be great.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to mention, I received a call from Doug Walls, who's the chair of the Friends of Malcolmson Park. During the monsoon on Saturday morning, they had their plant sale, and they sold $10,000 worth of plants on Saturday morning, and the profits from that are going to go to a healing garden that they're going to be planting over the course of the summer. Thanks again to Director Murata and his crew, because the entry was full of potholes on Wednesday, and they got there with some extra stuff, and the people didn't have any broken springs at the end of the day. So thanks. It was mentioned that the staff were great working with the Friends of Malcolmson, and also we just finished way ahead of schedule repair job on the what's called the pond at Malcolmson. We weren't planning on, or I shouldn't say we, the Friends weren't thinking it was going to get done for a year or two, and it got done by Rankin Construction quickly, and they're very, very pleased with the service that the city's been giving them. Thank you. Oh, also, we were at Club Roma, Mr. Mayor, I know you were there, and they filled, I don't know how many knapsacks or backpacks for children in need of with school materials on last week, and good for them. They certainly do a good job in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, on what Councillor Deputy Mayor Phillips said, it was called Kids for Kids, done by TELUS, and they did 100,000 across the country, but we did what, like 300 or something like that, I think it was. So, Mayor came in at the end when we were all done, but hey, Councillor Dodge, Councillor Phillips, and myself, but you know, He was a busy guy. He said
You
he
know
was
what?
in
I'm
meetings
just
all
going to
day.
jump in and defend my honor here.
I had to add
And
that.
full credit to Councillor Dodge, Councillor Phillips, and Councillor Stevens. They definitely did the lion's share of it, but I did come. I did a couple with the folks, and I will say thank you to the folks at TELUS. Thank you, Councillor Phillips and Councillor Stevens, for raising it. Thank you to the folks at TELUS for taking on that initiative. It really is fantastic. 100,000 backpacks goes a long way for a lot of people in communities across the country, specifically here in St. Catharines.
And people have questioned us, why were they doing it now? And the reason we were told was the fact that when they're giving out to the families now, they don't have to worry all summer in order to save money or whatever to do this for the kids. They already have it, and it's already in place, and then something they don't need to worry about come September. So that's why it's done early like that. So great job by them. Last week, I attended the Niagara-on-the-Lake Chamber of Commerce Business Achievement Awards because the airport, which I'm on the commission, was nominated for Business of the Year, but unfortunately we didn't win. I'm going to say we came in second, but they don't count that. But anyways, the guys out at the airport have been doing a really good job, and there's going to be a lot of more great news coming up on that one. Grantham Lions Club thanking everyone for attending their fish fries throughout the season. They're now canceled. Well, they not canceled. They closed for the summer, and they'll be back in September. So come back out for the fish fries. And last Saturday night, Give the Boot for Ronald McDonald House fundraiser dinner at Johnny Rocco's was put on. Very good event. Ronald McDonald House, they tell us, only gets about 40% of their funding from McDonald's, and the rest is done all through donations and families. That if you ever had to use that facility, it's a wonderful place. My brother-in-law had to use it way back when their son was born 30 years ago, and without that, your child's in the hospital, and it's just amazing. So that's it, and I'm not really going to say anything about folk arts other than it was really good, really well attended by the community as well. A lot of councilors were out there. There's 23 open houses with the doubles, and so I didn't make a couple of the doubles, but I did attend 21 of them, just if anyone's keeping track.
Only you, Councillor, only you. Councillor Mako.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for loaning us your giant scissors and ribbon for a grand opening ceremony in Port Dalhousie. Councillor Williamson and I hosted for the Christie Street Stairs, which was a wonderful project to see through to completion. And we did give credit to former Councillor Garcia for really being a champion when this issue came up to promote public access to the waterfront. Well attended by the community, Rankin Construction, Jocelyn from city staff, and CHCH came, and somehow this became the top story on the 6 o'clock news, which maybe it was a slow news day. Councillor Williamson and I would say it's Port Dalhousie, we deserve it. But anyways, it was a well-attended event, and we finished just before a rainstorm came in, so that fortune smiled on us. And one other update just on our 200th anniversary celebration for Port Dalhousie. There are now a series of street banners up, just got installed on Friday. So if you're driving through Port, specifically the Lakeport, Lock, Main Street area, you'll see 20 different sponsored banners by local businesses and community groups just recognizing our 200th anniversary. So just a new thing to add to the streetscape. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And the goings-on in Port Dalhousie should always be top of the 6 o'clock news. Councillor Williamson, before the other councillors start yelling at me.
Thank you. A week from this Friday is the beginning of the Canadian Secondary Schools Rowing Association Regatta in Port Dalhousie on Martindale Pond. Thanks in advance to the volunteers, coaches, organizers, and a special thank you to Ken Jasper Campbell, who for over 25 years showed leadership on this event. And I'd personally like to thank two long-serving coaches who are retiring from teaching this year. I'm not sure if they're necessarily going to retire from coaching rowing, but Tim Tope from Governor Simcoe and John Rossetti from E.L. Crosley Secondary School have really put in a lot of hours and had lots of success in terms of a lot of their students going on to scholarships, et cetera. The mayor covered the situation at the former General Motors site. We're also having frequent break-ins at Lincoln Fabrics and 25 YMCA Drive. And Councillor Mako and I have discussed with staff, and hopefully we'll have greater police presence as well in Lakeside Park. There's been some incidents which we need to, I think, have a bit of a show of force early in the season to stem that tide as well. Speaking of stemming the tide, nice segue, accidental segue. Lakeside Park, I'm pleased to see that staff has got sandbags prepared because the water levels are very high, and I know that they will be cognizant of protecting both the lighthouse and the antique carousel, so thanks for that.
Thank you, Counselor. And just speaking with schoolboy, I'm going to look around the room. Go Bulldogs, go Reds, go Redcoats, go Tigers. Am I missing any other high schools in St. Catharines that are going to be competing at schoolboy?
Did you say Phoenix?
Go Phoenix, go Raiders, go Flyers.
Yes.
I'm only aware of the teams that compete against my kids in the boats, so okay. I think we covered them all. If anybody thinks of another nickname we need to shout out before this is done, let me know. Back over to Councillor Phillips, who had something to add. I apologize, Councillor Phillips.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I forgot to mention that the 2026 Officer Track and Field Championships are going to be taking place at the West Park, the newly renovated West Park track. It's a beautiful, beautiful facility. Now it's June 4th, June 6th. The top track and field athletes from the province will be competing in this, and according to Mrs. Stewart, who is responsible for getting that, I think that track and field, it is the largest track and field event in North America to be held over a weekend, as far as the number of people who are going to be participating. So, and if you're a track and field fan, be there.
Excellent, thank you for that. And yes, if you have a chance to see any of the promotional materials, they happen to feature a very prominent St. Catharines resident and Olympian, Muhammad Ahmed. No, Councillor Harris, not you. Muhammad Ahmed, one of our very own. So, with that, I will look to the clerk now as we move on to the adoption of the agenda.
No formal amendments. However, looking at a change of order for tonight. Item 10.1, which is the motion regarding safe drinking water for Indigenous communities, would be discussed after item 4. And then if time permits, council would then go directly to item 9.1, which is the older adult plan. We have additional items of correspondence that are in Council's Sugar Sync folder and will be included on Council's correspondence listing on Thursday. That's available on the city's website. One is additional correspondence from residents regarding item 7.1, which is the 263 Pelham Road application. And item number 2 is correspondence from MP Biddle regarding item 10.1, safe drinking water for Indigenous communities.
Councillor Harris.
I was hoping that my fellow councillors would indulge me and we could refer item 7.1 back to staff. So instead of holding the public meeting today, I would like to refer the report back to staff to work with the applicant to further consider a design that has the driveway access on Pelham Road instead of Trent Court.
Okay, so a motion to refer is not debatable. All those in favor of the referral? Opposed? And that is carried.
Thank you.
So for those who may be in attendance, that means that item 7.1 tonight, which was the public meeting with respect to the development on Pelham Road, 263 Pelham Road, will not be held this evening. It has been referred back to staff and asked that for staff to work with the proponents on different design changes. There will be public notifications sent out in advance of that public meeting. Moving on to the adoption of the minutes. Motion the council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting held on May 11th, 2026. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Lindell, Councillor Williamson, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Any declarations of pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none. We move on to our declaration to all presenters. Council chambers in all municipalities in our country represent the seed of local democracy. The many acts that govern us understand the necessity of the collective voice when decisions are being made to grow our spaces past our bylaws and to seek opinions into very complex issues, ensuring safe spaces for all in our public discourse. We recognize the right of the majority to decide, the minority to be heard, the public to have an opportunity to participate, and all participants to be treated with courtesy and respect. It is imperative that elected officials, citizens, and staff have input, and it is paramount that we listen to one another and question one another, but that we understand we do this in a way that never undermines any person's ability or their dignity in our chambers. We respect the right for everyone to have an opinion and remind the audience views of the public do not always reflect those of the Corporation of the City of St. Catharines. We move on to motion 10.1, safe drinking water for Indigenous communities. And prior to discussion on the motion, council will hear a delegation from the 4A class from Beacon Christian School. So at this time, could I ask the class from Beacon Christian School and their teacher, Mr. Jeff Brooks, to please come up to the front.
As followers of Jesus, we are called to seek justice in God's world. After learning about the numerous northern Indigenous communities that do not have access to clean water, we decided to engage in a project to bring awareness to their current situation. The first step in solving any problem is being aware of that problem. Our hope is that our project will be a catalyst to spark change and make a difference in the lives of those affected.
As a part of this project, we developed our very own water treatment plant model. We decided to do this to get a better idea of the effort that is needed to make water clean, fresh, and drinkable.
We also had a visit from Niagara Region water expert Greg Epp, who shared more about the process of treating water in Niagara. We were amazed to hear that not only is water treatment complex, but it is also very costly.
In small groups, our class conducted research and developed Google slide presentations for 9 specific northern Indigenous communities that are currently under a water advisory. We will now have each group present a short summary of their information.
Sandy Lake First Nation is located in northwestern Ontario. For 22 long years, the residents of Sandy Lake First Nation have been forced to boil the water to survive.
The water treatment plant is quite dated, and there are many ongoing issues that cause the water to often be undrinkable. The water is contaminated with toxins and bacteria. There are so many people in Sandy Lake First Nation that are still depending on bottled water to survive. It is not fair that some Canadians do not have clean drinking water.
Pekin-Geekum is a community in northwest Ontario. This community has been under a water advisory for 25 years. This is mostly because of a failure of their water infrastructure. Their infrastructure is breaking down frequently and it's growing old, so they have to fix the infrastructure more efficiently so that it doesn't break down again.
Neskantaga First Nation is an Ojibwe community that has been under a water advisory since 1995, making it the longest-lasting water advisory in Canadian history. Neskantaga First Nation has a contaminated and aging water treatment plant, which is the reason for the water advisory.
Neskantaga First Nation is a Ojibwe community. Neskantaga First Nation deserves clean water like any other ordinary Canadian town or city. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms clearly states that all Canadians need to be treated equally. Having some Canadians without clean water is not right. Things need to change today.
Nunavik First Nation has faced a long-term drinking water crisis since February 2013. Residents have had to boil their drinking water for 13 years now. The water advisory is primarily due to equipment malfunctions at their water treatment plant. It has been stated that their infrastructure was poorly designed. Due to high turbidity, a measure of how cloudy or hazy the water is, the water from the tap in Nunavik often looks tea-colored and difficult to treat. The water treatment plant also has issues caused by power outages. These outages have damaged gauges, making consistent operations difficult. The remoteness of the community increases difficulty in bringing in parts.
Shamawa First Nation in Northeast Manitoba has been under a water advisory since December 2018, All attempts to repair the isolated community's water treatment plant has been unsuccessful according to the federal government. It has been stated that the chlorine levels have been dangerously low, and as a result, the water has not been treated properly. The treatment plant needs upgrades and a new intake structure designed to draw in water from a natural source, such as a river, lake, or reservoir. Clearly, Shamawa deserves to have clean water.
My group researched Tutasqueak Split Lake First Nation in Manitoba. The community has used traditional knowledge in its land and water management. However, they have faced significant water quality issues. Their water treatment plant is no good enough to clear the blue and green algae toxins from the water. The government has promised a new water treatment plant, but the process has stopped. The government should provide more assistance for the water treatment plant improvements.
Matthews Columb is a Cree Nation that is located in northern Manitoba, Canada. In 2020, the long-term water crisis began. As of early 2025, the community was still under a water advisory. The issues in Matthews Columb are primarily caused by the need for a new, improved, upgraded water treatment plant.
Clean water is a human right established in 2010, but there are still people around the globe who have no clean water for their personal needs. Everyone should have clean water.
Grassy Narrows community is an Ojibwe First Nation located in northwest Ontario. This community has been under a water advisory since 2013. This is primarily because of mercury contamination. 10,000 kilograms of mercury was dumped into the Wabigoon River by a private pulp and paper mill company. Although Grassy Narrows is developing a mercury care center, to this day people are still getting poisoned by the mercury.
Also, no government has ever tried to clean the mercury before. To solve the root of the problem, Grassy Narrows would need to do many more infrastructural upgrades and figure out a way to clear the contaminated land and water once and for all.
To learn more about how the water issues affect people's day-to-day lives, our class wrote letters to the chief and to various grade 4 classes from each community. A school in Grassy Narrows was the first to respond, and now we are pen pals with them.
Due to time constraints, we will only be reading some highlights from our persuasive letter. Clean water for Canada. We think every Canadian should be entitled to have clean water running from their taps. Access to water and sanitation are noticed by the United Nations as human rights, necessary to everyone's health, dignity, and prosperity. However, 160,000 Indigenous Canadians do not have access to clean water. This is more than the population of St. Catharines.
Clean water and sanitation services are important for the health and safety of all Canadians. Clean water is not only necessary for drinking water, you also need clean water for bathing, cleaning, eating, etc. For example, when fishing, you could catch fish that are contaminated. Grassy Narrows is currently having this problem. We have connected with students from Grassy Narrows First Nation, and it's very sad that most of them are likely poisoned by mercury. A whopping 90% of people from Grassy Narrows are said to be impacted by mercury poisoning. The government of Canada needs to stop underfunding Indigenous communities so that everyone gets the same amount of funding to fix their problems.
Many indigenous nations have old, broken down infrastructure that can be fixed with additional funding. Stricter environmental policies would help communities like Catharines and make it so that people don't do silly things like dump mercury into rivers, which destroys communities and ruins people's lives. Only together, hand in hand, we will be able to solve this problem.
I was about to invite everybody to break the rules of decorum that we normally observe because we don't generally give a round of applause to presenters, but that was exceptional. So well done to all of you. We do have a couple, potentially a couple questions. I know Councillor Townsend has some, so I'm not sure if you're going to nominate someone to answer them, but I will turn the mic over to Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take a moment to thank Mr. Brooks, the senior leadership at Beacon, for and also the amazing students for coming forward and taking an interest in this. It's a lot of work that goes into this, and it can be intimidating to come forward to speak in front of a lot of people. So congratulations. I do have to ask a question, though, and you can just show me by a thumbs up. Did you all have fun doing this project together? Yeah? Awesome. Congratulations, and thank you for coming out tonight.
Councillor, I was curious as to how you're going to turn that into a question. Well done. Are there any other questions of council? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much, all of you, for your presentation. You can have a seat back in the gallery. Can I have a councillor to move the motion to receive the presentation? Councillor Townsend, Councillor Phillips. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So we now have the motion on the screen. This is moved by Councillor Townsend, seconded by Councillor Phillips. And I will look to Councillor Townsend to kick us off. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just go to the therefore clauses. Obviously, the students did an excellent job of highlighting a lot of the concerns right now within Indigenous communities. The federal government has done a really, really good job over the last 10 years, putting out a lot of the current boil water concerns. There's still a lot more work to be done, and this motion isn't directed to, to put down previous governments, whether, whatever party people belong to. This is just to have the city encourage and really ask the federal government to continue to push for clean drinking water. It's like the student said, people in Canada should have safe and clean drinking water. We have the most fresh water in the world, and we have the resources to provide this. So I'll just read the last two. Therefore be it resolved that Council of the City of St. Catharines call upon the Government of Canada to accelerate efforts, funding, and infrastructure investments necessary to eliminate all remaining long-term boil water advisories in Indigenous communities across Canada, and be it further resolved that the City Clerk be directed to circulate our resolution to the Prime Minister of Canada, the Minister of Indigenous Services Canada, local members of Parliament, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up, I have Councillor Harris.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the presenter, I was wondering if there could be a friendly amendment in there. Like, I think it's a wonderful motion, but is there some way we could incorporate the town of Wainfleet? Because they've had a boil water advisory for about 25 years. So would it make sense to, I guess, the region as well and mention Wainfleet in there, since it's part of the Niagara region? Okay. And maybe mention Wainfleet somewhere in there. I'm not sure where. Well, there's been a boiler advisory there for 25 years.
So I would suggest perhaps if we're going to wordsmith for a moment, an additional be it resolved clause, because I don't know if it fits in with the first therefore clause. Alternatively, I mean, Councillor, if you don't consider it friendly, that's also your prerogative.
I think the focus of the motion is for Indigenous communities. I think if we want to put one out specific to the Niagara region, I think we can do an additional motion, if that's fair.
So Councillor, perhaps notice a motion tonight for the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Phillips.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Again, to go along with Councillor Townsend. Thanks very much to the students and staff at Beacon. A very, very worthwhile issue that is being dealt with. But this, again, is an education moment for these students who have worked very, very hard on an issue. They brought it to a governing body such as us, and now they can see that all their hard work is going one step farther. And it just shows this young group and other young groups that if you work hard and you take all the right steps, what is so important to you can matter, and it can go farther. So congratulations to them, and I'm sure that council is going to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no other comments, before we go to the vote, I will just say kudos to the students and to Mr. Brooks at Beacon. I had the opportunity to see this presentation as well. I know they invited other local officials. I believe MP Biddle had a chance to see the presentation as well. Did our MPP as well? MPP Stevens as well, so that's fantastic. So kudos to all of you for bringing this forward, and I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Mako.
Yes.
Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
That's carried.
All right, so that's carried unanimously. So kudos again to the class from Beacon Christian. At this time, we do have time before the public meeting, and so we'll move on to item 9.2, Community Recreation and Culture Services, Recreation and Culture Programs, the St. Catharines Older Adult Plan 2026 to 2030, a city for all ages. Prior to the discussion of the report, I will call upon Dominic Ventresca on behalf of the Older Adults Advisory Committee to provide a presentation. I will say that's a bit of a script flip. We had a group of grade 4s up here to talk to us, and now a presentation of the older adult plan. So,
yep. Well, I'll say that it's a hard act to follow.
I feel for you, Mr. Ventresca.
But the Older Adult Advisory Committee was prescient in naming the Older Adult Plan a community for all ages. So that's my attempt to kind of ride in the wake of that presentation. Mr. Mayor, members of council, and city leadership and staff, it's our pleasure to present this evening this Older Adult Plan for you. I'm speaking here as a committee member on behalf of the St. Catharines Older Adult Advisory Committee. All the members are here. There's 7 committee members who answered the call when the city put out a request for volunteers to step forward to serve on this advisory committee. What we'd like to do this evening is review with you the Older Adult Advisory Committee, a bit of the purpose and membership, the context for this Older Adult Plan, the priorities that were identified in a survey of St. Catharines older adults, the intersecting themes that are in the plan, and also some of the highlights, and finally the next steps. The advisory committee, the terms of reference as approved by council, were to provide advice and comments on staff reports, strategies, and project plans related to the city's older adult plan or on other issues as requested by council. And primarily this last term, the goal was to update the city's older adult plan and support its implementation. The advisory committee members, they're all here, by the way, in the gallery, and Kim Bauer is the chair. This group has worked hard as a team this past term, meeting pretty well monthly with the leadership and support of Kobe Vanyo. This group has done its job in terms of the terms of reference, but also has introduced other elements like formal input into the development of the James Street Square, Civic Square, and also on the redevelopment of the Sunset Beach. A little bit of context. This plan that's being proposed this evening replaces the previous plan that had been approved by City Council. It's based on data from the community survey of 335 older adults aged 50 plus that was conducted in 2022 by the Age Friendly Niagara Council. And from that larger database, information specific to St. Catharines was extracted to allow us to inform this particular adult plan. The survey focused on older adults' needs and also the potential. And it's not all about needs. Older adults provide tremendous resource to communities, certainly in terms of volunteer time, in terms of intergenerational family support, caregiving, and also in terms of spending money on goods and services, because the baby boomer generation, fortunately, controls the bulk of wealth in Canada and spends that money locally and supports the prosperity of local communities. In addition to the information from the survey, the Advisory Council members themselves provided some additional input, and we believe that the plan reflects issues related to social determinants of health. From the survey, the respondents identified what they saw as priorities, and when tabulated, these were the 5 priorities in order of importance: supports to aging at home, health and wellness promotion, increased recreation, leisure, and learning opportunities, increased housing options, education, and information about programs and services. These 5 main priorities from the survey were transformed by the Older Adult Advisory Committee into 5 goals that informed the plan that's before you this evening. There's an overarching interest of the respondents to improve quality of life and to enable opportunities for healthier lifestyles. For example, more opportunities to volunteer. Similar issues surfaced under more than one goal, and you'll see that in reviewing the plan. For example, irrespective of the goal, there was a perceived lack of information by older adults to accessing what they needed. Challenges in navigating and accessing programs and services, and also for some older adults, the affordability of some programs and services. So we move on to, just a minute here, did I miss something? Yes. So the highlights of the plan, we need to raise awareness. It's a voluminous plan, and you have a lot of stuff on your agenda, so we need to return to raise your awareness, that of also staff and leadership. And we're thinking perhaps a webinar, workshop, educational sessions to help identify what information is in the plan. We also recommend that the city leverage its programs and resources and partner with others to contribute to desired outcomes. And this is an important point because the committee saw that many of the issues that are raised in the survey are not under the purview of the city. But the city can influence what happens within the city to serve the citizens of St. Catharines. And for example, if there are information sessions that are facilitated by the city at its facilities, like the older adult centers, community centers, library, and others, and invite community partners that do have a say or some purview over the issues raised, like Niagara Public Health. So there's a way of accessing information for the citizens of St. Catharines by leveraging the city's programs. And finally, the next steps, we would propose that Council receive the proposed older adult plan, refer it to staff for follow-up. That we as a committee collaborate with the Community Recreation Cultural Services Director, Christy, who will champion the implementation of this plan, and this plan include a work plan to raise awareness among councillors, leadership, and staff on the details of the older adult plan, a process of assessing the plan's potential actions, its forecasted resources for implementation, and indicators to promote accountability for each adopted action. For example, what are the outcome metrics? Is there going to be a possible future resurvey to see if we've made progress in the areas identified in the survey in 2022? And thirdly, we would ask that the city apply for membership in the World Health Organization's global network of age-friendly communities. Certainly advantages to that, sharing what St. Catharines does, and also learning from other communities that are age-friendly around the world. So with that, I'd like to thank again Council for this opportunity to present, and we remain open for comments and questions.
Any questions or comments from council? Councilor Mako.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the presenter. Dominic, I'm glad you highlighted that seniors being an asset to the community. I think too often maybe we think of the cost, but how much they give back. Just speaking for Port Dalhousie, when we think of the Friends of the Carousel, the Lion, the Legions, the Optimists, they are vast majority seniors who are giving back hundreds, if not thousands of hours. I don't know if you can quantify that investment if we had to pay staff to do the amount of work that seniors do. So just did want to emphasize that. And when you're thinking about strategic decision making here, did your group think of any sort of tool that city staff can use when we're reviewing, say, a recreation master plan or development applications to see if they're senior friendly? Does anything like that exist? Something like a checklist, or just I'm just thinking practically a tool to ensure that this plan doesn't just stay theoretical but actually practical?
Yes, well, Mr. Mayor, thank you for that question. Pardon me. Yes, certainly. First of all, I comment on the older adults and their contributions. Older adults volunteer disproportionately in the numbers in the community. In fact, when I've made presentations to other city councils across Niagara under a different hat I wore at one time, I often followed volunteer appreciation nights. And guess what? Most of the folks getting honored were older adults. So there is certainly that important point, and thank you for making that. The other point around how to apply the lens of an age-friendly lens to all of the activities of the city and other organizations. That's what's in the plan in terms of raising awareness, you know. And once we had an opportunity to raise everybody's awareness and develop some metrics, there are some tools that can be brought in to help develop that lens and apply it to all aspects of city things, whether it be communications or the size of fonts on road signs and the number of park benches and all those issues that relate to the quality of life, not just for older people, because what's good for older people is often good for everybody.
Right. Community for all ages. Well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Communication. As far as the city is concerned with older adults, how can we communicate better with you in order to make you aware of the programs that are available to you? What, you know, as far as our website, is our website friendly to you or to senior adults? Are there any other methods that we can use better to communicate?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's an excellent question, and we can say that more is always better when it comes to communication. We're surprised ourselves to find from the survey that irrespective of the great efforts already made through websites and other means to communicate what's available through about city programs, there's still that perception of inadequacy. So doing it more in whatever respect, social media. In fact, one of the things the survey showed, unlike oftentimes stereotypical views of older adults who are kind of, you know, Luddites when it comes to technology, not the case. A majority of the people who responded use the computer and either through social media or other means. So continuing to do that, right, through the various social media and so on. And I know that through the older adult centers, Kobe has a number of good communiques that go out to older adults, more of the same. I know that the Garden City Current, we're suggesting perhaps, you might hear from further on that perhaps there be a section for older adults news, you know, something like that, to help, again, just add more aspects, more avenues for getting that information out to older adults. And then, of course, there's always the issue of the size of print material. If you do send things around, like even tax bills and whatnot, you know, always consider those who have, not that everybody has visual impairments, but you know, those kind of things to help make the message easier to consume.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Ventresca. I'm always interested in the comments that the survey, now the survey dates back to 2022, so some of them do reference the pandemic. And there's also, I'm going through, there's a lot of references to people who, for example, closure of the YMCA ended my access to physical health opportunities. And that seems to be a common theme with a lot of the respondents here, is that Did you hear a fair amount of discussion around the loss of the YMCA?
Well, Mr. Mayor, that did come up numerous times, as you've pointed out. And in fact, the Older Adult Advisory Committee weighed in on that and submitted some correspondence to staff about the value of that property and how it could have potential for serving as a community center. And when one looks to other communities of smaller size, even in Niagara, one sees the development of community centers which are active for older adults. And again, people of all ages. It's not a senior center, an older adult center. It's a community center. So our committee, at least the previous term, saw value in that property and made our opinions known, but we also recognize that there are many complicating factors, and the decision of council we respect. But yeah, that was certainly a topic that came up a number of times.
Mm-hmm. And there was another finding in here. 46% of respondents felt somewhat weak or very weak in terms of their connection to the community. Does that give us reason for concern?
Well, the flip side is 60-some-odd% feel. Mr. Mayor, I shouldn't.
Glass half full.
There's always a room for improvement. In fact, studies show that the risk of social isolation is one of the worst hazards for older people. It begins to define a downward spiral. If people don't leave their homes, become somewhat isolated and don't get their walks in, don't get their fresh air, lose touch with their neighbors and their friends, and their physical and mental capacities begin to decline if they don't exercise, and then they fall and they break a hip, and that's a downward spiral. So it is important that, even though my flippant remark about the 60%, plus, yes, to continue to impact on that number so that the fewer people that feel isolated or that don't feel part of the community, the better, because it has health benefits spin-offs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I also noticed that there's a fair number of comments about related to the health system and medical care. Will they be circulated to the respective organizations that should deal with those issues?
I think, Mr. Mayor, when we get to the implementation, that may be one of the strategies, is to communicate that to some of the partners that we want to engage in terms of presenting to St. Catharines residents some information. Mm-hmm. And many of actually, when the Age-Friendly Niagara Council finalized its survey study, it made it available to all of the major players in healthcare and others across the region. Of course, how much one reads is another issue, because we're all inundated in data. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think the implementation plan may cover that issue and help us reinforce the importance of those issues with those who are responsible. And that's where the city, not being responsible directly, can influence those who are responsible to address some of the issues that were raised by the residents of St. Catharines.
Right, thank you. And then the BFIT facility, the gym up at the Canada Game Centre, seems to have gotten a lot more popular. Disadvantage for those of us in the north end, it's a long way to get there. Has there been any suggestion, or are people carpooling or finding ways to get up there to enjoy the long track and other facilities that are offered?
Mr. Mayor, that question I may not be able to answer. I don't have enough but again, transportation is always an issue, and I know the mayor here is very keen on that, and others are too on council. But yeah, mobility, transportation is always an issue. But it is a fine facility, and we know many older adults access that.
Okay, and last question. In terms of us becoming members of the World Health Organization, does that offer some benefits to the community? Or is it just more for guidance?
Mr. Mayor, I think the importance or the value to the community is to learn. When you become part of a network, you learn what others in the network do. So there are newsletters and other means of, there are also some conferences overseas and stuff, but we won't ask about that to attend. But there are means of learning from others, and also us sharing what we are doing here in St. Catharines and being part of a global stage. There's always value in learning best practices and improving the local community based on what others are doing, rather than having to reinvent wheels and so on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, great report. Kudos to the committee and everything. 92 pages, very thorough. I did look through it too, just so you know. And I guess One of on the comment page, I seen a lot of. I was really surprised that a lot of our older adults are using tech better. My father was too. At 89 years old, he was doing it in his banking and that. But also, I guess some of the problems would be with the tech is downtown parking and the honk and that kind of stuff. I've seen everybody struggle with that, and I guess that would be you've heard of that as well. That kind of.
Yeah, so, Mr. Mayor, I was able to, access that
Nice.
this evening and get the parking done, but actually I had to use my charge card because City Hall here doesn't have that feature, I don't think, here at the Market Square, right? So, but no, it's again, it depends on the individual, right? If a person's driving, if they're tech savvy, then they do it. But it's an option, and options and choices are good. We don't want to stereotype all older adults as, Luddites or tech savvy. That's the range and everybody in between. So choices are good, and that's a good choice, the honk program.
And we've heard this before, and I think I did see some reference in the report, is the practice of apartment buildings now charging for visitors to park, and we want our older adults to stay in their homes, and I guess that would be a big worry, that they're worried when their PSWs and different people won't come or can't come because of the paid parking. That's probably a big hurdle. Right?
Well, Mr. Mayor, that is an issue I know that's come forth, and members of council have been involved in that, as well as the MPP, and it's a challenge, but there are always challenges, as one knows, and if people are focused on the right outcomes, what's best for the community, the solution will be found. It might not be easy, but when there's a will, there's a way.
Well, it's a great report, and yeah, we're going to move forward with that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ratzlaff.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Thanks for this report and being able to share, raise the awareness around the survey. The survey was done in 2022, and so I just wonder, have we seen improvements since then, specifically around education and information about the programs? Have you seen improvement since the survey was put out? I know the staff has worked really hard on improving some of these communiques, and I think I've seen an improvement, but I'm just wondering from your perspective, from the committee's perspective.
Yes, well, Mr. Mayor, my answer to that would be that based on anecdotal evidence, my own observations, and also the observations of other committee members, that there has been a greater awareness among staff. As we've worked with this, as I mentioned, Kobe Vanyo has been our liaison person, so she gets the message, and she's done her best, I think, to improve on that. We're getting more communication ourselves, and as we get it, we're critiquing some of it too to help, provide. And so I would say anecdotally, there has been an improvement. Ideally, one should take a look at the metrics and then part of that work plan we're discussing here earlier, and then maybe resurvey in time. And then that will give us a better indicator of progress. But anecdotally, I would say, yes, there's been an improvement in that regard.
Yeah, my two other questions are similar, but the idea of continuing collecting this data and in the future, I'm not sure if the organization that did this survey is planning to do a follow-up in the next few years, but it would be, I think, really beneficial to be able to track progress. But in terms of transportation, so we have worked on an active transportation master plan. I assume that your committee was somewhat involved in giving input into that plan, or if not, have you seen any of the improvements to our pathways, to our sidewalks? Has that are we progressing in the right direction?
Mr. Mayor, the committee did not formally put anything involved, but again, we've been kept apprised, or on our own remain apprised of the various Engaged St. Catharines initiatives. And so as individuals, we will apply that age-friendly lens and put our input and submit our input. So we didn't do that formally as a committee. In terms of comments, these are my personal comments. I like to cycle, I like to walk. I live in Port Dalhousie. I go along the waterfront trail. I see improvements, and everyone knows the beauty of Lakeside Park and now Sunset Beach. So I'd say there are some marked improvements, and also the committee did weigh in on the subject of of walkways, accessible benches that are near walkways, and there's so, as everyone knows, there's these lovely park benches that are in memorials across the city. And so where there's a concrete pad, where there's a bit of space on the side, perhaps for a walker or a person in a wheelchair to park their wheelchair without having to be in the middle of the walkway, those are all improvements, and I think city staff have been responsive to our input on issues like that.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. I have had questions about the extra space of concrete beside the benches, and I've had to explain that to some residents why that's there, but I'm glad it's being used. Just two last questions. I sit on the transit committee, and we have had some discussion around transit passes for seniors, making them free. So we talked about actually transit passes for seniors and students. I think that fits well into the kind of the theme, community for all. But I'm just wondering, like from your perspective and what you're, from maybe the information in the survey, or what you're hearing in terms of how beneficial that would be for seniors. Is that something that's is a need, or is that something that you've heard it would be well used?
Well, Mr. Mayor, the issue of transit passes is a live issue. I know that at the Seniors Fair that was held at the Dunlop Drive Older Adult Center this past year, we had as a survey question for people to come to our table, because we held a table there.
Oh, good.
What are some of the issues? That was sometimes one of the issues. Actually, it was last year. This year's issues are mostly around volunteerism. And, but last year that was one of our questions. What would you want to see as a citizen of the Catharines to most improve life for older adults in the city? And some folks would say, you know, for those who are perhaps on an income issue, I mentioned earlier, baby boomers who are wealthy, so I can't, so again, there's a spectrum of older adults, but for those for whom money is an issue, a transit pass or something like that would certainly assist in getting people around and making them active in the community, and so on.
Lastly, if you could identify, I don't know, like out of these action items, like some of the lowest hanging fruit items that we could do as quickly as possible, like which ones would you point us to?
Mr. Mayor, that's a tough question, but I'll say this on the spot, that aging at home is the highest priority for people. So whatever opportunities within the city's purview, whether it be, I'm just going to throw out some things here off the top, you know, some tax rebates or other means to help, you know, deferrals, helping people stay at home. I know sidewalk clearing is always a big issue in the winter. So that would be the highest priority, and then one would have to ask, what can we do as a city to address people aging at home?
All right, no, that's helpful. Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kushner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hear a lot of positive comments about the specialized transit, which picks up the older adults and then takes them to one of these centers, such as Lynn Haven. Have there been requests to improve that, or is it operating at a very satisfactory rate?
Well, Mr. Mayor, the issue of transit is a contentious one, as one knows, and there's always room for improvement. Certainly, as this is again personal, we haven't discussed this formally as a committee, but the whole regional transit program, with the expansion of certain issues like transit on demand and so on, those are definitive improvements, better equity across the region in the delivery of certain transit services. It comes up when we have these community sessions, like at the Older Adult Center, like I said, back last year and this year. So improvements have been made and acknowledged, I think, but there's always room for something better.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no other questions, I want to thank Mr. Ventresca for the presentation.
And may I have one last word?
You know what? I will let that happen.
Okay,
You've been so wonderful to us already, Mr.
Thank you,
Ventresca.
Mr. Mayor. My last word, which I've been granted to say, is I commend the councillors for their questions and the quality of their questions, and for the in-depth of reviewing some of the material, knowing the volume of material that you get. Your interest in having read that and answering and asking such informed questions is much appreciated by committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ventresca. I will ask, will you be at the flag raising next Monday?
You'll be there, I'll be there.
I'll be there. Will there be pickleball, I think is my other question.
Well, do you want to do that again? Because the last time, you know what they did, they beat you pretty bad.
I was beaten by a 94-year-old man, and I was beaten like a rented mule. I will just say my partner was Mr. Christie, and I blame him. With that said, I did, however, also purchase a new pickleball paddle just last weekend. It's not that I've been practicing, I just saw it and thought I should have one of these, so when I get beat with my own equipment. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the staff recommendation? Councillor Phillips, Councillor Kushner? All right, Councillor Phillips and Councillor Kushner. I let the youngest councillor make the motion for the group of kids, so I thought turnabout was fair play. Any questions or comments with respect to this one? All right, seeing none, I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner. Yes. Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Mako.
Yes.
And Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
That's carried.
Right. I did want to just offer another reminder for those who are tuning in after 6 p.m. Item, I believe it was 7.1, the public meeting that was planned for this evening related to 263 Pelham Road, has been referred back to staff to work with the applicant and will be coming forward at a later date. There will be public notice issued in advance of that in accordance with all of the regulations around public meetings. I will look now. We have a motion to move the consent agenda. Save and accept those items brought forward for discussion. Can I have a mover for the consent agenda? Councillor Lindell. Are there any items? I've got Councillor Kushner first and then Councillor Stevens.
6.3, Mr. Mayor, to be pulled.
6.3 to be pulled. And Councillor Stevens?
Yeah, I don't really want to pull 6.1, but I just want to thank staff for all the hard work that they've done coming up with the honorary street naming program. It's been a long time coming. Since I was first on council, I've been asking for it, and along with Councillor Townsend, and it took a lot of work to check out what the other municipalities were doing. And again, I just want to thank staff, and the Polish Society is very happy that they are able to be one of the first groups to apply for this. And I do want to pull item 6.7.
Oh, you snuck that in there, didn't you?
Yeah.
6.7. So 6.3 and 6.7 will be added to the discussion agenda. Councillor Williamson?
Councillor Mako and I are not going to pull 6.4, but of course we need to make mention of it, and we would like to see the transfer of this roadway happen sooner rather than later, as you all know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And I will simply agree wholeheartedly that I would like to see the transfer with the appropriate capital dollars happen as soon as possible. And I wanted to, Mr. Murata is nodding his head, yes, that is an important caveat, but the appropriate capital dollars for our 87 Main Street in Port Dalhousie to come back to the city where it rightfully belongs, just like all the regional roads rightfully belong with their local area municipalities. But that is beside the point. I will now look to the clerk for the balance of the agenda.
Today's consent agenda includes item 6.1, Community Recreation and Culture Services, Honorary Street Naming Program, Copernicus Way. Item 6.2, Community Recreation and Culture Services, Port Dalhousie Conservancy License Agreement for Carlos Garcia Park. Item 6.4, Engineering, Facilities, and Environmental Services, update on reconstruction and possible transfer of Regional Road 87 Main Street. Item 6.5, Financial Management Services, interim extension of Parking Enforcement Services Agreement. Item 6.6, Financial Management Services, Niagara Symphony Orchestra line of credit extension. Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
Councillor Mako.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Counselor Phillips,
Yes.
Counselor Ratzlaff,
Yes.
and Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
That's carried.
All right, so we are moving now to, I'm just going to make sure I get this right with the clerk, 9.1. I believe 9.1. Keep going. All right, 9.1. I will also say thank you to all the folks who have been absolutely committed to the front bench living on the right-hand side. There is a wide open public gallery at this point, and there are 6 people who insisted on being in the front bench. And only Miss Walter from the Standard really has an excuse for why she has to be there. So prior to discussing this report, which is our recreation facilities and programming plan, or we can just refer to it as the recreation plan. The recreation plan. I'm going to say it again, the recreation plan. Prior to discussing the report, council will hear a presentation from Anand Desai, the principal planner and partner of Monteith Brown, Jim Richardson, the chair of the Recreation Master Plan Advisory Committee. We're probably going to change that to the Recreation Plan Committee.
I hope so.
We'll be providing introductory comments. What's that? Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
Mr. Richardson, the lectern is yours.
Okay. Mayor Cisco, council members, staff, citizens of St. Catharines. I'm here tonight to reflect briefly on the recreational master plan from 2024 and transitioning into the rec facilities and program plan 2026. My name is Jim Richardson. I've been involved with recreation in the city for over 40 years, from coaching to being a member of the Rec Advisory Committee for close to 12 years and having the opportunity of chairing it for the last 8. The Rec Advisory Committee was created to work with CRCS staff and council to implement their recommendations while using the plan from Monteith Brown. Over the past 7+ years, through the dedicated work of CRCS staff, partnerships with local businesses, service groups, and other levels of government, along with the support and confidence of council, our committee has helped move the city to a new level of recreation. Various items are, staff has identified and prioritized our parks and playgrounds to be involved in the park renewal plan. Staff helped secure partnerships with our park legacy plan. Splash pads in every ward, Port Dalhousie to come, the aquatic study, the field strategy plan, Fairview Park strategy plan, improvements to our football field, baseball diamonds, and yes, a new pickleball court. Improvements to our adult community centers, these are just to name a few. A partner with Monteith Brown will present a plan that will guide the Garden City, the city where everybody can play, for the next 10 years or more. At our last committee meeting, he told us a few unique facts. We are different from some communities in that we have a committee who helps staff with the recreational updates, and that since the plan was received by the city, we have either started or completed 85% of the recommendations in the report. I'm sure if not for COVID, we could have done a little bit better. Mayor, council, and our next plan.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for having me. Thank you. I appreciate you having me here today to present the Recreation Facilities and Programming Plan, hereforth known as the Recreation Plan. We will walk you through that. So as Jim just mentioned, the Recreation Plan, this one is an update to the last one that was done in 2015. And again, excellent work on behalf of the city that of that plan from 2015, 85% of recommendations either completed or ongoing. And the rest kind of, just we had a pandemic and other factors. This plan today before you is setting the course for the next 10 years, looking to the year 2035. Built with community feedback, we reaffirmed the vision of the community for St. Catharines to be, for the purposes of recreation, the city where everybody can play. A really great response through the community as part of this plan. We were able to reach over 3,000 people, had direct conversations with hundreds and hundreds of people, including 800 responses to our survey. For the open houses that were held over the course of the planning period, over 200 people attended those. We engaged community groups, various advisory committees, as well as certain and selected partners and other institutional and agency representatives operating in St. Catharines. There's a total of 41 recommendations in the plan. I won't go through all 41 in my 10 minutes, so focused on maybe some of the ones that we feel are a bit more notable. But in the Q&A, certainly if you've had a chance to go through the document, I'm happy to speak to anything in the plan. First and foremost, in terms of indoor recreation, there's a couple of things that we heard, very loudly from the community, and upon further analysis into some of the requests that they were making, we agreed with them that there is a need for a second indoor aquatic center in the city of St. Catharines. Since I was last here in, would have been, I guess, virtually in 2021 with the aquatic strategy, we have had a couple of non-municipal pools. They're no longer available. That, in turn, in combination with your population growth since the pandemic, is putting a lot of pressure on the St. Catharines Kiwanis Aquatic Center. And so, there has been quite an increase in the number of program registrants, drop-in swims, and the wait list has grown there. So we believe that there is a need for the city's second aquatic center featuring likely a multi-tank configuration for more of the recreational swims that could occur in a rectangular setting, lessons, lane swims, that kind of thing, but also a more leisure pool, similar to what you have already, but just recognizing again the range of ages that an aquatic center would serve. We also looked again at arena needs and believe that subject to further study in a few years from now, the way things are trending is that there is the potential for another ice pad to be required in your city, and we would recommend doing so either by twinning the Bill Burgoyne Memorial Arena or the Meriton Centennial Arena for that ice pad. We also heard from folks gymnasium space. Right now, Port Weller is the only municipal gymnasium that you program. And so we heard from older adults, from youth, from children, and city staff as well. A gymnasium would just unlock a lot more programming potential, so we have recommended that, either in tandem with a new aquatic center or an arena, depending on where that would go. Or a gym, an indoor track, a group fitness studio, potentially added to the aquatic center that exists. We also looked at existing infrastructure. Your community centers, older adult centers are very much parts of your neighborhood. We just heard about aging in place, and so we have looked and at the community demographics, the growth occurring in your neighborhoods. We believe that in anticipation of growth, driving down Ontario Street with the redevelopments that have occurred, are projected to occur, pressures will grow on the Russell Ave Community Center, as well as potentially the Hague Bowl. So looking at potential to reconfigure those, potentially expand those. Modernizing the older adult centers, to be a bit more conducive to healthy aging and aging in place, modernizing those in a manner that attracts new members and generations of seniors to use it. And we also heard a little bit from the field sport community about the need for indoor field sports during the winter time. We believe that St. Catharines is at a population threshold that would support such a facility, and recommend doing so through enclosure of the Kiwanis field. That can be, there's a couple of options that municipalities do. Bubbles that kind of can be put up in the winter, come down in the summer. That's what your user groups told us that they prefer. But we also do see municipalities constructing year-round built and enclosed turf fields. Consistent with the sports field strategy that I was here about a year ago presenting, we looked and reconfirmed, validated those analyses, and continue to advance the need for rectangular fields and ball diamonds, including relocating the ball diamond from Alex McKenzie Park to Pickleeson and John Dempsey Park, creating a four-diamond complex similar to what you have at McCaffrey, but in a different part of the city. An inclusive barrier-free diamond is becoming best practice. And again, as a city where everyone can play, we feel that either at St. Patrick's Park or another suitable location that we provide such a ball diamond there. Rounding out the aquatic strategy, its recommendations to have a splash pad in every ward. City has made good progress, and the last ward that does not have a splash pad at the moment, but we are recommending one, would be in Port Dalhousie. You've already confirmed that the pickleball hub at Bill Burgoyne. The research that we're doing in other municipalities suggests that the hub approach is good. It's sometimes challenging to have pickleball courts in neighborhood level parks due to noise, traffic, so it'll be important to do a proper site selection to establish hubs in the north, central, and south. Again, that includes Bill Burgoyne Woods Park. And continuing again, we heard about the park renewal plan. Continuing without those efforts, there's a lot of infrastructure. There's hundreds of playgrounds, dozens and dozens of courts between tennis and basketball. And so keeping up, it's these small, somebody asked about quick wins. Sometimes renewal of park-based infrastructure, can revitalize a neighborhood, revitalize a community. And so continuing to do so. In terms of parkland, if we were to continue providing the same level of service per capita as we do today, that would require another 25 hectares of recreational parkland. We advance and encourage the city to continue looking at its existing parks, including Joe Kushner Park, preparing a new concept for Alex McKenzie Park to define a new park-based vision. Again, there will be a need for green space and demands within open green space, especially as the Ontario Street Secondary Plan, becomes implemented. Fairview Park Community Vision Master Plan, that was recently done, which articulated a number of facilities for that area, and we are suggesting that a trails renewal plan be prepared separately to look at those various active transportation linkages. In terms of just more service delivery, continuing to work with local groups to promote greater rates of physical activity, looking again, continuing the work that you do with Indigenous communities to advance reconciliation through your recreation programs and park-based offerings. User fees, we know, was something that council had looked at earlier a few months back, and so as part of implementation of that, looking at your cost recovery levels to define, what you believe is appropriate from a cost recovery standpoint. From an inclusion standpoint, regularly reviewing and updating the financial assistance and recreation program. And one thing that we heard this actually from a few members of the public as well as some of your advisory committees, just even transit. We talked a little bit earlier today about transit. Sometimes a transit stop can be a fair distance from a community center entrance if you have to cross a parking lot, or it might be across the street and a block away from a major park. Some bus service at the moment doesn't go to the St. Catharines Kiwanis Aquatic Center on weekends, for example. So really it's a matter of engaging Niagara Transit, Niagara Region Transit to see, hey, is there other ways we can work together? So in terms of the cost implications, we have advanced a fair degree of capital. Again, it's been 10 years since the last plan, and the last time we prepared that plan, St. Catharines was, its growth profile was a little bit, flat. There wasn't a lot of new growth, and what we've seen in the last 5 years, especially, is that there has been an uptick in development and intensification. People are coming, and that's creating a pressure. So the costs, at a minimum, one could expect of implementing the recreation plan's recommendations in capital would be about $127 million at least, the bulk of which would largely be attributable to the aquatic center, gymnasium, and arena. But prior to, implementing these recommendations, it's important to recognize, and we recognize, that this city is balancing a lot of different priorities in terms of infrastructure and service. So the recreation plan is providing recommendations that we understand require a level of additional thought and prioritization with other needs. But staff will be coming forward, through to help you inform annual budgeting, other financial decision-making processes, to provide you with funding strategies, give you an understanding of operating implications, because that's an important thing to think about as well, and other matters pertaining to enhancement of facilities, programs, and services. So really, again, this is not, all 41 recommendations aren't going to get done in 1 year. That's not the intent. This is a 10-year plan. Really, we are asking you, by approving this plan in principle, you're not bound to any or all recommendations as they are being brought forward, as they're being advanced today. They will be brought forward over the course of the work plans. And as I mentioned, really, there are other priorities that we know that you will weigh when you're considering your fiscal priorities. So before I close, I just wanted to say thank you very much. First and foremost, to the community. Again, we heard from a lot of folks. It's understanding the needs on the ground of the people that live here that really help in shaping some of these directions. The work of your city staff, from people just crunching numbers for us. We worked with a lot of data. That is helpful to help us provide you with informed recommendations. I think that comes from leadership of your city staff and you as council as well. But I want to extend my thanks to Kaylee Casano, Elise. Those were the two project managers, and they did a commendable job. Lori, Eric, Phil, again, and many others were involved in this. So this is not just the product of one person. The Recreation Master Plan Advisory Committee, again, a great sounding board. So just wanted to extend those thanks. I know I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. We still have a Q&A to attend to, but I wanted to make sure I had the time to express the gratitude to everyone involved. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. We do have questions. Councillor Harris.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenter. You've been doing this for quite a while with the city. Is this your second time doing this, like a master plan?
Well, yeah, would actually technically be my third.
Okay.
This is the city of St. Catharines was actually, I was saying this to the advisory committee, the second or third thing that I started on in my career. I was brought in partway. Yeah.
Perfect. So you've been around a while. So I'm just going to take a step back and talk about Burgoyne Woods. We closed Burgoyne Woods, and at the time the talk was that a destination pool was going to be built there with the previous administration. I'm just wondering whatever happened to that talk, and has it ever come up again?
What I will say is it did not come up through this current master planning process. The focus was squarely on indoor aquatics from the aquatic perspective, what we heard largely from the community.
Okay, so how would I go about ever getting it back being talked about?
Make it a splash.
It's interesting to me because it came up and we closed it because it wasn't accessible, and all the talk was that we were going to put a destination pool or a splash pad, and it's never reared again. So,
Councillor, I would actually suggest when we come to the recommendation to endorse the plan, that at that point an amendment, perhaps asking staff to investigate the feasibility of an outdoor aquatics facility in keeping with the motions that were passed in 2015 related to a destination pool, as you so eloquently put it. That might be the most appropriate time to put that on the radar.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Councillor Lindell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank you for coming. Your reports are always amazing, and I appreciate them. And thank you, Mr. Richardson, for chairing this committee and making sure that our city has always got options to play. With the Indoor Aquatic Center, would it make more sense with the Indoor Aquatic Center if it's not just like we have at the Kiwanis, which is the pool, some meeting rooms, and a library, but to make it a full community center and, you know, senior center, library, walking trail, walking track, gym, that kind of thing?
Yeah, thank you for that question, and thank you for the kind words as well to lead it off. I think what you will find is if you look to what other municipalities that have recently constructed aquatic centers have done, they have co-located them with other recreational or cultural amenities.
And then my next question would be the location of the pool. I know a lot of people were upset with the YMCA closing, and you probably heard a lot from those people. But does it make sense to maybe put that pool in a location on the other side of the QEW in order to, facilitate a larger population over there?
Yeah, I think, the master plan advances some, preliminary site selection criteria that city staff can, start to do the requisite due diligence. Geographic distribution is one such factor. But does the city own land? Does it not? How large is the population within a reasonable area? So, I think there's a lot of factors there. And, I think finding an appropriate site has to be big enough as well. There's a lot of things to think about there when determining where it will go ultimately.
And then the other recommendation was to move the Alex Mack ballpark to Pick-Leeson, but that doesn't stop another ball diamond because baseball is becoming so huge in that area once the GM sites gets fixed, right, or settled.
Yeah, we've identified the need for additional district parkland under your parkland typology, to meet the needs of the anticipated growth in the Ontario Street corridor. So, I think for Alex Mackenzie Park, it's a matter of, defining a vision with your community, understanding again the demographics, what is the best use, recreational use of that park to serve more people, but also, hopefully being able to acquire a sufficient amount of new parkland in your new development areas as well, which again could potentially include sports fields, hard surface courts, other amenities that are identified in not only this plan, but maybe a future update to it as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kushner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your presentation, you identified the capital costs, and then you talked about the annual funding cost of $1.5 million. How did you arrive at that $1.5 million?
Yeah, that really is through the park renewal plan, which Council has seen, which is largely focused on playgrounds, tennis courts, basketball courts. A certain amount of money has been set aside for that. We have looked at that. I think in terms of the 1.5 million, I believe that is a number that staff have been budgeting, right? So, I don't think that represents any net new addition to what's already being incurred, but staff can correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, how does that compare with our funding now? Is it the same? 1.5 million per year?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And with respect to gyms, we've always talked about schools being underutilized with respect to their gyms, and the question is, why are we not using them in a joint, with a joint agreement?
I think there's certain nuances with the gym. I know that the city has a relationship to gain access to Harriet Tubman, for an example, but it's not a perfect science. The province has, always mandated, community use of schools through an initiative. But the ability for consistent programming to be delivered through gyms varies by municipality. Ultimately, a lot of authority still rests with the school board. They're able to sometimes dictate the rental fee, for example, which may be affordable for some, not affordable for others. They may be able to dictate what types of uses occur in their gyms. If it's an elementary school gym, sometimes and oftentimes they are small to be able to fulfill the range of programming. So I think schools are resources, so are places of worship, but ultimately for consistent municipal program delivery, both in terms of price and in terms of access, a lot of municipalities have seen strong value in having their own gymnasiums, as has probably the Port Weller example demonstrates.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kushner. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, that was the question I was going to ask, because I remember when I was a youngster, the city put out a magazine, Parks and Recs, of all different activities that were going on, and I swear half of them were all done at schools. I attended like a basketball clinic at Lockview School on Tuesday nights, and to go on with that, the facilities are empty, and but you already answered the question, but I just wanted to add that, it seems like a waste of resources, so. I couldn't ask a question here.
Councillor, this is a period for questions.
I know.
Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. In part of the presentation, you talked about rectangular fields. Certainly after the mayor and I played soccer this fine week, there's always need for more. But the one thing that was interesting, I just wondered if you could expand on it, is the idea of not just full-size, and I'm going to go with soccer courts or soccer pitches, but the idea of the box and the smaller sizes to allow those of us who might be older and still want to play that beautiful game.
Yeah, no,
it's a smaller size.
We're starting to see a few more of them. The priorities are still on large fields from soccer club programming. But what we are seeing, especially in communities that are experiencing intensification, as you are and will continue to be, where, again, if we look at the Ontario Street Corridor, it'd be great to get additional sports fields in there. But what we know is that municipalities are able to get less parkland through the Planning Act, through the land development process today than when we last did this plan. So something like a box soccer court, we've seen them in Mississauga, in Brampton. We've seen them even in a couple of smaller communities as well. Really, they are fenced in. They usually have an artificial turf. They can be programmed, but oftentimes it's almost like a basketball court, but for soccer. And so it's a way for folks that aren't necessarily members of a soccer club. Still a way for them to come out, get active, and do so in a spot where a lot of people are living.
That's great, and I appreciate that you didn't say run long distances. Thanks.
Councillor, I will say it's kind of funny for me as someone who's played soccer with you recently, knowing that you play goal, and so you don't run at all. Okay. Councillor Ratzlaff.
Oh, jeez. Thank you, Mayor, through you. I just have questions about recommendation 34 and 39, which kind of relate to tracking some of the data and how our programs are being used. And I mean, I asked the questions about these two recommendations because my kids are probably oversubscribed to programs in the city, karate, fencing, sewing, it's a bunch of things. But I always find that when I go to register, it's kind of especially swimming, right? It's a race to get there. So I'm wondering, there's a recommendation 39 is develop a one-page set of performance measures to reflect capacity efficiencies. Is that touching on, are we already collecting information around you know, the pool is, that indicates that the pool is over capacity, right? Like we talk about how many people that pool serves, but then I think the other question is, you know, are all of the programs oversubscribed? And then the demand is just so high, like we need another pool. I mean, how do we get that information? And do these two recommendations, are they addressing that question, or are they addressing something slightly different?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. First, I'd just like to say, and I've said this to the advisory committee in the past, a city of this size population-wise has always provided us with really good data. We don't always have the benefit of data. So I want to, you know, extend kudos to you as council if you're setting that direction, you know, so that staff are actively collecting data, looking at trends, looking at their own performance measurement. And so part of this recommendation is really to enshrine something in a 10-year document that says this continues to be important, to track data. As part of the initial work of this plan, we requested a lot of data with respect to sports fields, with respect to the aquatic center, with respect to you know, other you know, programs that are being offered. And really what this, you know, kind of what 34 to 39 just speaks to is making sure we understand where our pressures are, understand where, you know, it's great to try programs out. I think the Recreation Department tries really hard to innovate and respond to things that, you know, they hear from the community. Some of those things are really great, and the community latches onto and sustains with success for a period of time. Others, you know, maybe it's an initial, you know, bump, and maybe interest maybe wanes as trends do. But the point is that by having data, staff are able to understand where the pressures are, where they may need to adapt or, you know, refocus efforts to explore other new things, recognizing resourcing is finite. That's really where we're going with those recommendations. But I can tell you with the pool, the data that we looked at the pool, as well as, you know, in talking to folks that use your pool, you know, we hear things from folks, but the ability to lean on data to ground truth those sentiments, we understood where those folks were coming from.
All right, so I'm not wrong when I have to race to my computer the day that it opens up to get in. That indicates that there's need here and desire, yeah.
You are not wrong, and in fact, we heard that from you know, a lot of folks in the consultation process. But I think when we again look at the data, to us that speaks to capacity,
yeah.
Right? That you have a pool, and a lot of people are clamoring to,
yeah,
you know, get
sure.
into it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, Anand, this is my last recreation master plan. I think I've been with you since, well, before you were with the company, we did one that wasn't very successful. I think some councillors were here at that time, but they've increased to get better and better, and I think this is the best one you've done. And to Jim, thank you very much. I sit on, as you know, I visit you and many of the rec master plan, now rec plan committees, and thank you for the job you do. It's a great committee. As far as seniors programming is concerned, in your travels to other cities, are there programs, and we just had our older adults as you sat through, do other cities have, say, senior slow pitch and senior soccer and things like that? Because our fields during the day are not used to any great extent. I think of Lancaster Park or our soccer fields. Do you see seniors programming for seniors in that respect in other areas?
Yes and no. It depends. Sometimes these organizations, you see it a lot with hockey. You know, the old timers, and
hockey's busy.
you know, on the ice. You know, the masters level programs that you see with soccer and baseball to some extent, you know, they're largely, you know, folks kind of maybe more around my age, kind of, you know, 40s on average, and but you do see seniors and older adults still in those leagues. I think it's a matter of, again, continuing to, you know, as a department, as a city, you know, talk to folks, what the interests are, what their interests are. I think a process like this, again, you know, through this older adult plan that you just heard about as well, you know, there's a number of references to recreation. I think, you know, that dialogue, understanding, you know, is there the demand, is there the need? And if there's an ability to utilize facilities that might not be as busy during the daytime for whether it's sports fields or whether it's in gymnasiums or, anywhere else at the beach. I think it's worthwhile exploring. But to answer your question more directly, we don't see a lot of it, where it's directly senior sports fields organizations, but, I have seen it.
Okay. As far as the aquatic centers, and maybe you can't answer this question, and Mr. Mayor, maybe I should save this for later to ask Mr. Christie. As far as the debenture on our our Kiwanis Aquatic Center right now, are you aware of how many years we have left?
That would be a question for staff.
Can I ask that now, Mr. Mayor, or do you want me to wait?
I think we should wait until we get to the report for that particular one.
Okay. Thank you. As far as the new aquatic center is concerned, correct me if I'm wrong, the last time we had a meeting, you indicated that a city this size could actually use 3 aquatic centers. Is that correct?
We tend to see, in terms of a population threshold, municipalities providing 1 aquatic center anywhere from 35,000 people to 50,000 people. So even on the upper end, if we're at 145,000, you're getting close.
Okay. Well, we're hoping we can get 1 more soon. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mako.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question builds off Councillor Ratzlaff's, which could be because we have kids in similar activities and we bump into each other at sewing class, which is surprisingly an excellent program the city offers, right? But regarding performance measurement, so city staff collect participation, utilization, and service satisfaction data to analyze service delivery levels, which is very important to make evidence-based decisions. And I know we do that for indoor facilities, pools and arenas were mentioned. Have you seen it done well anywhere for outdoor facilities? So I'm speaking more about parks, playgrounds, fields, just to know utilization. And the reason I'm asking that question is there has definitely been a shift from unstructured play towards more structured activities over the past generation. And I'm just wondering if there's evidence to back that up, because I see it with my kids. I don't see as many just coming home from school and running to the park or playground anymore. It's more parents shuttling them to organized activities. Are you seeing that bearing out in the data?
It might just be dad life for you, Councillor Mako. I mean, I'm in the same way where I'm shuttling things. I think the trends that we're actually seeing, still, where my parents, had me, and I'm speaking again personally here, but I think I can speak generationally, and maybe we're of a similar vintage. I mean, I was shuffled to hockey practice early in the morning and, soccer practice. But the trends that I have seen over my career, my professional career over the last 20 years is actually kind of a bit of a shift away from organized activities to more unstructured, because people are just really time pressed, and to be, at the ballpark every Wednesday evening at 7:15, for the opening pitch, that can be hard for some families. And so some are looking for an ability to just drop in and play. But that's not to say that, there isn't a demand or a need for organized activities. Again, my children, because I'm able to, and my wife are able to make time, to get them to those activities. That's where I think the work of the city, to have 8-week programs instead of 8-month programs, for example, to provide them in different locations, perhaps even, in the summers in parks. There can be an organized element even to informal activities. Yes. Right? So
the traveling playground comes to mind. I don't know if that's still a thing anywhere, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it's here and not everywhere, but, there are elements. Again, where there's a need, where there's evidence, in terms of demand. And to go back to your question around satisfaction, we often hear a lot about park systems, outdoor amenities through these types of processes. It's hard to, I guess, something like a playground, which is inherently unstructured, to understand how satisfied people are, with that regularly. But I'm sure that's information that gets collected somewhere through your citizen satisfaction surveys, right?
Well, and we might hear about it informally as councillors, more complaint-based. When the grass hasn't been cut, this slide is dirty. But I don't have a good sense of numbers and usage of the parks and playgrounds.
Sorry, those are a little bit more challenging to quantify. If somebody's booking an hour of ice, it's in the system.
Exactly.
Right? If somebody's walking in to play pickleball, there's probably somebody at the front desk that can, click or track, So a playground's a little bit different since you have, hundreds of them.
It makes sense. I was just curious. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I'm really happy to see the consideration for having the fields like Kiwanis. I like the idea of Kiwanis Field having the opportunity to have a dome or some type of engineered structure. We are seeing a lot of interest in people who play indoor soccer, and there's also a large interest for indoor softball now. You're starting to see that. My question is there examples of communities that have actually built, it says there's this idea of a pre-engineered concept. Is there any examples of communities that have actually done something like that?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and I also appreciate, an indoor turf field. Soccer is a big user, but not by any means the only user. We see softball, we see football, we see cricket. Sometimes we even see community events, in some of these spaces. To your question, though, you're probably seeing a lot of bubbles, right? The air-supported domes, and they tend to be a little bit more. Well, they cost less than a built structure. The fabric, I mean, they have a shelf life, right? Like usually you get 10 to 15 years out of a fabric. But yeah, there are examples of communities that have invested in built structures. Again, a bit more costly to build. You get a little bit more operating certainty. There are certain risks with a bubble. For example, I mean, they can be, if they're not, enclosed with a fence, they can be prone to vandalism, they can be prone to extreme weather, whereas a built structure is a little bit more hardy in that respect. So, but again, there's a cost benefit associated with that. I think in the case of Kiwanis Field, in particular, user groups told us as much as they, absolutely would love the idea of being able to play in the winter in St. Catharines indoors, they still want to play outdoors in the summer. So to have some flexibility, but again, there are operational considerations there that the city would have to think about if there was an annual, set up and take down of a bubble.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for that. Maybe one day we'll see a Kiwanis Field with a retractable roof and where we can see football year-round, soccer, but that'll be for another decade or so. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Councillor Williamson.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're familiar with the 2029 Historic Welland Canals Task Force. This was a group that met over, I don't know, maybe a year and a half and came up with a strategic plan with a variety of different recommendations for how to animate and provide wayfinding and other resources and to highlight certain features that we have because we got a great canal history here in Niagara and particularly in St. Catharines. And the canal it went through, I don't know, six of our 8 wards. I think there's reference to it in here. I don't know if you had a time to take a look at the recommendations from the committee. There's a strategic plan that came out a few years back.
Yes, it was a number of months ago, but
Sure.
Was there anything in particular in terms of the recommendations that?
Well, I just want to make sure that it doesn't get fall through the cracks. That it's something that, and I'll talk to that when it's time to ask questions of staff. So anyway, there was lots of good recommendations that came out of that committee. Some very good people on that committee, and our museum staff did a great job on it. One of the biggest ticket items on here looks to me to be the acquisition of land. We got 5.5 hectares for district parks and 20 hectares for neighborhood parkland. I guess that's not costed, but that would that be like represent a whole lot of money?
I think with that, parkland acquisition, you're entitled to under the Ontario Planning Act. So as part of any new development, You're entitled to 5% of the developable area for parkland, or there's 1 hectare per 500 units, and there's other calculations. So I guess bottom line is, you're not funding that all yourselves. Part of that is growth related and paid through the development process, or conveyed through the development process.
One of the challenges we have, we're landlocked, so it makes it difficult to find new space. And then we've had a history of selling off public lands, unfortunately. And for example, the Garden City Arena and Rexheimer's Arena were closed, and now that was recreational space, is not going to be recreational space. Okay, and I will stick to questions. There is a recommendation for a splash pad in Port Dalhousie. The splash pads that we have currently, just the water goes down the drain into the sewer system. Are other municipalities recycling that water, or is there any new technology around those kinds of water features that you could tell us about?
Yeah, really, from what I know in my planning work, is that you can have those flow-through systems, as you mentioned. I mean, it's like turning on the tap, and really you meter and discharge it into your stormwater. You also have the ability, municipalities, to have recirculating systems, but again, they can be, it doesn't go straight into the sewer, but there are requirements around public health. So you are treating it, testing it, the water. There are other systems as well where there's kind of maybe a happy medium where it gets collected as gray water and used to water the gardens in the park. Still requires a degree of treatment. But yeah, I think municipalities haven't picked one or the other. There's different reasons and different philosophies. Municipalities that are very focused on kind of water conservation may choose to trade off higher costs of operation to save that water with a recirc system.
Right, and Councillor Harris did mention closure of Burgoyne Pool. We also suffered the closure of Lancaster Pool. Fortunately, on the west side of Port Dalhousie, we still have a pool and a children's pool as well. And one of the complaints that we get is that the water goes in late June. The pool opens when the kids get out of school, July the 1st. The water's freezing cold, and then it's always subject to the weather. Is there a way that we can improve conditions and extend the season for outdoor pools?
I think
other than putting a roof over it?
Well, I think that's why a lot of municipalities are now looking at the indoor template, right? The ability to control our weather, we just haven't figured that out as humans yet, right? To stop the rain from coming or the lightning. But you do note, some common challenges to keep an outdoor pool warm. Anybody with a backyard pool knows what their gas bill is.
Right.
To keep that warm, and to a population that is increasingly looking to warmer water. Again, I'll speak as an individual here. When I grew up learning to swim in outdoor pools, they didn't heat those things; they just threw us in, and it was cold. Right. My kids, I guess my kids are not the right example. They like cold water, but others, are looking for that warmer water. And so the best way to ensure consistency in access, in temperature, and ultimately the programming is kind of a controlled environment.
Right. I am a geography major, but I'm really impressed by the series of maps that you provided with these concentric rings. And when I read them, I see that there's lots of gaps in the north end of the city, particularly when you look at indoor facilities. And I think we have, if you add them all up, the 4-pad, Meriton Arena, Ridley Arena, which is a private arena, the 2 new arenas in Thorold, part of the Canada Game Centre. I think you're looking at 8 or 9 arenas south of the Queen Elizabeth Highway and 1 in the north end. And now that would suggest to me that there's a deficiency in that area for the north end of the city where more than half of the population resides. Is that a fair statement?
I think when you look at spatial distribution of certain facilities. You're absolutely right, arenas you've just pointed out. Ultimately, though, I think there's, well, we applied a spatial lens through this, right? We also tried to be pragmatic. Where does land exist, and developable land or readily developable land? Those are all the questions that, again, for an aquatic center, for an example, your staff will do the requisite analysis to look at what can we acquire for what we need, and does that contribute to an overall degree of spatial equity, I suppose.
Right, and then some of your recommendations, back to the issue of the fact that we should be acquiring land instead of selling it. Some of them are suggesting that you build these hard infrastructure facilities on green space. I mean, that kind of contradicts the direction of having more green space, I would think.
Okay, do you mean like in the case of Alex McKenzie?
Well,
or?
let's say, for example, let's say we doubled Burgoyne Arena, then that would take out the park in behind Burgoyne Arena.
Yeah, and I think in an ideal world, one would be able to replace that, elsewhere, if not on site. I mean, it goes back to the question around land acquisition somebody asked as well. I think to be able to get, 5 hectares, right, whatever, 10 acres for a community center, 10, 15 acres, like, part of that is funded through development charges. You hope that you don't have to displace another needed land use. Sometimes, though, we do see in cities that are intensifying where they're not blessed with, 4,500 acre farms still that are, zoned for future development. There will have to be some choices in St. Catharines. And I think in the perfect world, any green space that is replaced is lost for a recreational use or is replaced with quality green space, hopefully nearby.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Seeing no other questions or comments, could I have a motion to receive the presentation? Councillor Stevens, Councillor Phillips, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. Oh, sorry, and Mr. Richardson did have one more thing he wanted to do, so Mr. Desai, don't go too far.
It was already brought up that this gentleman's been around since the report 2015. Actually, I think I met him about 2013 because we started the first rec master plan long before it came to city council. Like he said, I think this was the second rec master plan. He's done arena studies, field studies, baseball diamonds, and all the rest of our aquatic study. He's been looking after this city for a long time. Seeing that this is our 150th anniversary, I was going to say wedding anniversary of being incorporated, I thought it would be fitting that we present him with one of our 150 sweatshirts. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. That's really kind. Well, it should. Well, if I may, I mean, it might not be the keys to the city, but it feels like it in some ways. I just want to say, though, like, in all honesty, I've been coming to this city as a little kid. My parents, part of their community when they immigrated to Canada was based in St. Catharines. So I came here as a little kid. But professionally, I think, having something like this as a token of appreciation, it just goes to show, as I said at the start, like, recreation is about relationships, right? At the end of the day, I'm privileged to have formed relationships with a number of you at the council table, a number of folks, city staff, and to be able to have a member of the community that I don't live in, but have, in a very small way, I'm happy that I've been able to help. You folks are doing, you folks are doing all the heavy lifting, staff, council, your folks. So thank you. That's really, really nice. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I let them clap once and then they want to clap for everything. I don't understand what we're doing here. All right, can I get I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation in the report. I've got Councillor Phillips to move, and second I'll take Councillor McPherson. I know we'll have a number of speakers to this. I am going to preface our conversation with one request. There will be an impulse among some to start discussing locations for individual facilities that are highlighted in this report. I am going to respectfully request to my colleagues that we do not engage in a conversation about potential locations tonight, for the simple reason that no locations have been identified for facilities. And tonight is a debate and a conversation about the plan as a whole. I would suggest if we start to get bogged down in a debate over individual locations for individual facilities, I think broad points can be made. Councillor Williamson did a good job talking about what parts of the city he felt needed more recreational facilities. That, of course, is appropriate. But if we get into specific conversations about specific facilities, I think we're going to go down a path that has no end. So I will respectfully make that request, and I will start with, I have Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to mention Burgoyne Woods. I just want to make sure that the staff explore the feasibility of an outdoor destination pool in the context of the outdoor aquatic strategy.
And I would suggest that that is entirely appropriate because you feel that is a deficiency in the report. That is a little bit different.
And it's 122 acres. Okay, that's it.
Okay, so I'm going to look to the mover and the seconder. Is that a friendly amendment? Yeah, but, okay, so it's a friendly amendment. Councillor McPherson, yes? Okay. All right, up next, I have Councillor Lindell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say, after reading through this report, I think it's wonderful the amount of work that they've done to identify areas in our city where we can improve our play. Sports, recreation, parks, they're really important not only to, I know, this council and myself, but to the people who are in our city. And the fact that we can improve on those, that the Community Recreation and Culture Services Department is making sure that they update playgrounds, they're updating splash pads, they're updating things even as we move forward with rebuilding as well, is really important. And I hope that once this comes and we start talking about destinations or what needs to be done first or how we can get this to move along, that we keep in mind that we're doing this for kids and families and people who live in our community who need somewhere to go after a long day of work or stress or just somewhere just to hang out. So thank you to Mr. Richardson and the Monteith Associates because this is a fantastic plan.
Thank you, Councillor Lindell. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's always nice to have another recreation master plan in our back pocket. There's been a lot of talk about a new indoor aquatic center, and I'd like to ask Director Christie, as far as the debenture on the one that we're using right now, how many more years do we have left on it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to refer that question to Director Smith.
Thank you. I didn't see him sitting behind me. I would have put it there anyway. So.
All right. So thanks. So through the mayor, the current debenture is the final payment will be November 1st, 2031. So about 5.5 years left.
So we're looking at 5 years. So if you look, when the next council meets and if it decides that we're going to go towards a new aquatic center, the old one will be virtually paid for by the time a new one gets built. So it's not a situation where we're going to be incurring additional debt. It's just going to be basically we're going to be continuing it. So it's something that the next council, I think, has to keep in mind. It's we definitely need one. Anybody that's been down there, I forget how many. Director Christie, you can tell me how many people go through that facility every day. It's, how many is it, would you say?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're seeing different numbers throughout the months, but we're hovering around 600 to 800 a day, including the library visits.
Right. The one issue, and it was mentioned in the report, and it's always been a problem, is the fact that programs are overbooked instantly. One reason for that is people from out of town are booking positions or spaces in swimming lessons and things like that. Is that still happening? Are we able to, or is that something that's been misconstrued in that report? Because I thought we were controlling that.
Through the mayor to the councillor, we do not accept out-of-town registrants for the first 48 hours of registration period.
For the first 48, that's what I thought. Okay. Mr. Christie, your department's got lots of work to do, but you've got 10 years to do it. So good luck. And congratulations on achieving 85%. I've never, ever been able to achieve 85% on anything in my life, so I can't imagine what it was like. But anyways, congratulations to your group.
All right, thank you, Councillor Phillips. Seeing no other comments. Councillor Williamson, you just jumped in. There we go. A little bit surprised I hadn't seen your light turn on yet, but have at her.
All righty, yeah, there's lots to like about the general direction of this report, and I think it is well intended to move the city forward. I already mentioned in questioning about the strategic plan from the 2029 Historic Well and Canals Task Force, which had lots of great recommendations in it, and we're like effectively 2 years away from the next big anniversary. And it is a historically significant one. We've got New York State investing tens of millions of dollars every year into the Erie Canal system. Federal government, provincial government spent a lot of money on the Rideau Canal system and the Trent Severn system. And we have every bit as important of a history here in St. Catharines and Niagara. And I just want to make sure that the great efforts that were made by some really fabulous, knowledgeable people aren't going to be lost. This, I take it through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Christie, will be something we'll see in budgets coming up.
Through the mayor to the councillor, we do have numbers in the proposed, or the draft versions of the operating and capital budgets for the next multi-year budgets for that project. And it is referenced in this rec plan and the recreation plan that it is a competing priority. And it's a reminder to council that we do have those other competing priorities before we delve into new projects, new capital builds, and other investments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Christie. All right, I got some words here that I'm going to say. One of my beloved late mother's go-to lines was, "Actions speak louder than words." And as I read through this document, where it refers to the necessity to acquire land for parks and recreation needs, my mom's words echo in my head as I think back to many parcels of public land we have senselessly sold, and failing to anticipate the future and now current needs. I won't go through the laundry list, but one that I think is important to talk about is the road allowance on Nehan Drive, which extended southwest across Scott Street and provided an entrance point and parking for the former Fairview Golf Land. And now we have approved ambitious plans to develop Fairview Golf Land, former Fairview Golf Land, and John Page Park into a regional park, and we'll have very little to no parking on site for that, because in part of that short-sighted decision. So the trajectory of selling lands has got to stop, particularly when we see in this report all the suggestions of how much land we should be acquiring. And anyway, it was sold off to the adjoining strip plaza owner for a meager amount of money. Interestingly, one of the expensive amenities to be included in that park is a splash pad. It segues into the potentially redeemable matter that I think is the elephant in the room that we need to talk about. This report starkly points out the most egregious example of short-sightedness in failing to act when the opportunity presented itself, and that being, of course, the great facility still standing at 25 YMCA Drive. Among other features, the splash pad, which is located a couple hundred meters across the Home Depot parking lot from the proposed one. The former Y was community built and paid for. It's a multi-purpose facility, exactly what this strategic plan and past strategic plans have asked for. It was at the heart of the city's recreational programming for over 20 years, and it is located at the geographical center of the urban area of our municipality. And we talk about population thresholds. It also served the needs of the town of Lincoln and the town of Niagara Lake, who don't have their own indoor pools. So before we commit to spending big dollars to replicate it on a new complex, we owe it to our taxpayers to relook at what possibilities exist to bring it into the fold. Since the real estate market in apartment-style units has evaporated, it makes eminent sense for us to re-engage with the property owner. While restoration costs have increased, they represent a fraction of the cost of a new build, particularly since new construction costs have inflated to such a great extent. We are supposed to be weighing environmental sustainability, and there's no comparison in mitigating energy and resource expenditures when it comes to contrasting renewal of an existing facility versus investing in a brand new build. And these critical issues were disregarded in previous discussions. I also don't want to hear an excuse that there's no grant money available for new builds and not for refits, because there is, and the Y stands as an example of that. It received plenty of federal and provincial dollars to upgrade over the years, and that's one of the reasons why it was in such excellent condition when it closed. Also, accessibility. Accessibility for folks with physical challenges would be greatly enhanced if this facility was reopened, because it would free up more slots at the jam-packed Kiwanis Aquatic Center. Just today, I was talking to a mom who was talking about how you got to be right there at 9 o'clock when the session's open, and if you don't get it, you're out of luck. Your kids don't get to go in swimming lessons. And then the mayor doesn't want us to talk about the fair and equitable distribution of recreational facilities. Well, he does, but he doesn't want specifics. Anyway, those maps are pretty good indicators, and there's empirical data to suggest that the North End deserves more than what we have. And now we have a lot of people in the older adults report pointed this out, that people are having to drive further distances to go to the Canada Game Center, which is in Thorold, and that's a cost and inconvenience, and it also creates more traffic congestion and greenhouse gas emissions. There are other potential financial benefits if we were able to acquire this property, and that would be to move some programs from smaller aging facilities, and we would not necessarily get into the expensive costs at certain facilities that are shown in this report. If the recommendations in this report stand as has been moved, we are committed to spending a huge amount of money on a complex that already exists. It seems absurd to me that we would do this. And therefore, I would hope that there's an amendment to prioritize finding a way to turn what is currently a civic embarrassment back into a thriving recreational center. And I think that Councillor Mako may have an amendment to that effect, which I would, in fact, support.
All right, Councillor Mako.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've joined the council more recently after the decisions were made regarding the YMCA building, but I was shocked while canvassing last year how many people were still bringing it up, and the YMCA isn't even in our ward of Port Dalhousie, but just how that need is clearly still out there. And I know decisions have been made, but in the spirit of fiscal responsibility, before spending $70 to $100 million, I just believe it's worth at least one more try to re-engage with Atria, the property owner, and explore a delegation from the city, whether it includes the mayor and perhaps one or two community members too, just for a balanced approach. I'm not sure what the outcome of that will be, but I couldn't stand by and not at least try when we're looking at spending this much taxpayer dollars. So that's the amendment I would like to propose in concert with Councillor Williamson, that a delegation approach Atria and explore the opportunity. I know this has been tried before my time, but just I couldn't let this pass, given the amount of money that we would have to spend on a new facility.
Would any member of council like to make a motion to go in camera to review the costs associated, given that those were in-camera numbers? Councillor McPherson. All those in favor of going in camera to review those numbers? Opposed? That's carried. In camera we go. Okay, folks, we are back in open council. I'll ask the clerk to read the reason for why we went in camera, and then we will have a motion arising from in camera.
So the reason that council proceeded into closed session was pursuant to Municipal Act Section 239-2C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding 25 YMCA Drive. The motion that was coming out of closed session is that the mayor proceed as directed.
All right, so I'll look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
That council proceed as directed, or sorry, that the mayor proceed as directed. And I have Councillor Williamson and Councillor Mako as the movers. Councillor Mako?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge? I'll come back to her, actually. Councillor Ratzlaff?
No.
Councillor Stevens?
No.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Phillips?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
No.
Councillor Lindell?
No.
Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Mayor Cisco?
Yes.
And that's carried.
All right, we go back to the balance of the motion. I have no further speakers on the list, so we have it as amended there, and it's what's in yellow. I'm just going to speak very briefly to it. I want to start off by thanking Monteith Brown and Mr. Richardson and the entirety of his recreation committee's work on this. It's been a long time coming. I am also going to just very briefly give a shout out to MPP Jeff Birch, because for those of us who were around the table way back when, MPP Jeff Birch was the person who sent us down this path initially with respect to a facilities master plan. And I think it's been said a number of times, but this is one of the more successful plans and planning documents that we've had in my time at City Hall. I think this is a very worthy addition to it. A couple of things I did just want to mention. First and foremost, I wanted to let Councillor Williamson know that we are working on the Welland Canal 200th pins as we speak, so have no fear. I think this recreation plan lays out a very clear and coherent plan for us. The numbers that were thrown around seem very large, but they are over 10 years, and I think when you take a look at it, our capital budget this past year, Mr. Smith is somewhere here, is in the range of $80 million capital budget. Yes, I'm getting a nod. So $127 million does seem large until you break it down over 10 years and you realize that it's only, $12 or $13 million a year. Still a very large amount of money, but in the context of how much we're spending to renew our infrastructure in the community, this is an important part. I talk a lot about recreation when we get into discussions about what exactly it is the city does, because recreation is one of the few areas that the city is entirely responsible for. This is a part of our mandate that only falls at this level of government. And I think it's important for us to have planning documents like the recreation plan to inform the decision-making process going forward. A couple of things, and I know staff will get frustrated with me. It's something I have harped on for quite some time. When it comes to school gyms and school parks, I will say we need to redouble our efforts to try and understand how the community can better access school gyms and school parks. The recommendations that come forward through our recreation plan, both this and the last one, always reference needing to build gymnasiums, and nothing gets me more frustrated when I then drive past a school gymnasium and an empty parking lot on a random Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night. There are facilities there that are taxpayer funded. They were built by taxpayers and they should be accessible to taxpayers, as opposed to forcing municipalities to have to spend more taxpayer dollars to build more facilities simply because of scheduling issues, because it's difficult to try and tie systems together. So I think that is something that we need to do a better job of. It's not just gymnasiums though, it's parks. If you take a look at the end of the report where it does have very helpful maps, some of those concentric circles, those areas where they miss, there's a school park right in the middle of it. And I noted one in my neighborhood at Grapeview Elementary, which was actually built with some city funding and is open to the public on a daily basis, but it doesn't count in hours. Again, these are taxpayer-funded and built facilities that should be open to taxpayers during the balance of the days when they're not being used by the schools. So I'm not sure how we fix this discrepancy. It's a long-standing frustration of mine, and it's something I'm going to put my head together with the folks in CRCS to try and understand how we can better deal with those issues. One of the questions that was raised, Councillor Mako raised it about usage of playgrounds. And I think that's probably a very difficult metric to ever lock into, but a little bit of anecdotal evidence, and the more anecdotes you get, I hear, you can start to call it, if you get enough anecdotes, it's anecdata, and that's a good thing. Elma Street Park. I had the opportunity to cut the ribbon on Elma Street Park. Councillor Williamson, I think you were there with me. A beautiful new park in an area that still on Google Maps has the old asphalt pad, and even from space it looks uninviting. It doesn't have an updated photo yet. My in-laws happen to live around the corner from the new Elma Street Park, and they've said they've never seen it so busy. So in those situations where we have parks and we feel like they're underused, I think in some cases they've just been underfunded, and they haven't been renewed at the rate at which they should. And that's a credit to this council that we have started to very aggressively renew our parks infrastructure. I'm going to look at Mr. Christie again, and he can just nod when I say we are renewing 4 parks this year. 4 parks this year. That is more than our average. We need to continue, and it's good to see that the funding, the appropriate funding is included in this. The number is clear on what we need to do to continue to do that, because when we renew that park infrastructure, the usage of the parks goes up. And I know Councillor Lindell can probably speak to that in Meriton. I know councillors across the city who have seen new facilities go in have told me they see more kids out and using it. So that's important to recognize. It's something we have to combat, the years of underfunding. I will finish simply by saying that at one point, Councillor Williamson said, the mayor doesn't want us to talk about fair and equitable distribution of parks facilities. And I will simply say, Councillor, how dare you? Shame. I am always interested in ensuring fair and equitable distribution of recreational facilities across the city, because again, this is the one area that the city is entirely, it's within our mandate. And this is a requirement that we need to ensure is maintained and is enhanced throughout the communities. With that, I will look to the clerk to call the roll on the highlighted section.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
Councillor Harris. Yes. Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Mako.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Mayor Sisko.
Yes.
And that's carried.
Item 10.2, request for Federation of Canadian Municipalities to develop an anniversary tree planting program. Moving the motion, I have Councillor Phillips. Seconding the motion, I have Councillor McPherson. Are there any speakers to the motion?
Just quickly, Mr. Mayor. Recently, we had a tree planting event. You were at it at Walker's Creek, where an organization planted 150 trees in honor of our birthday. And in doing that, you and I were talking, and I talked with Councillor McPherson, that it would be interesting if FCM would make some type of a program available, that if it was a significant milestone for any city in Canada, that their 100th birthday come up, that that they would help fund tree planting to that extent. So that's why I'm making that. I talked with Councillor McPherson. She indicated she'd be happy to take that to FCM when you're out in Calgary soon. Edmonton, wherever, out west.
It is Edmonton. All right, seeing no other questions or comments, I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Mako. Yes. Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
And Mayor Sisko.
Yes.
It's carried.
All right, item 6.3, engineering, facilities, and environmental services, engineering, construction, community engagement regarding sidewalk installations. Can I have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Councillor Kushner is moving. Do I have a seconder? Let's say Councillor Harris. Let's have some fun. Councillor Kushner.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the report refers to public consultation, public engagement, and this is going to become very controversial in several years, because right now we have a lot of subdivisions that were built in the late 50s, in the 60s, and in the 70s, and rarely do they have sidewalks. And what happens in these communities, like the one I live in, the community would not want sidewalks, and they consider their community to be safety for pedestrians, etc. And therefore, that's going to be in contradiction with the official plan, which calls for sidewalks in these communities. So it'll become very controversial, and I hope our staff pays more attention to the area residents. We had this problem in South St. Catharines, and we convinced our staff to look at the environmental impact of putting in sidewalks, and I hope we follow that procedure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harris.
Well, first, Mr. Mayor, I just want to say how nice it is to have Councillor Kushner here again, the A-team reunited in council chambers. You can clap if you want, but okay, so when we're talking about sidewalks through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to direct my question to the Director of Engineering, Facilities, and Environmental Services. Did we not come up with, didn't I ask for something that perhaps we could use some discretion when we're putting in sidewalks, that staff could actually look at the site and not necessarily put in sidewalks if they didn't really, like I'm using, for example, Hillcrest, when staff designed a sidewalk that would be on half a front lawn, and then we decided to remove it.
Through the mayor to the councillor, staff does use discretion in determining whether or not sidewalks can be accommodated within the right-of-way. There's obviously multiple competing priorities in the right-of-way with regards to maintaining existing driveways, trees, utilities, things like that. So we do take guidance from the Active Transportation Master Plan and from the official plan, which says to install sidewalks where we can. But if that cannot be accommodated within the right-of-way, we do use discretion in determining whether or not it's feasible to install.
Perfect, thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just want to add on with Councillor Kushner said. My neighborhood was built in 1958. We still have ditches, and it's great that way. You know, the water goes into the ditches, the water flows down. We don't have a lot of flooding issues with streets and drains being plugged. Also, when you're adding sidewalks and curbing to residents that don't want it, now they have to look after it. They lose parking spaces. And now once we've built it, now down the road, there's going to be maintenance of it and redoing it. And now it's an added cost. And I'll latch on with Councillor Williamson. Now we're taking more from the environment, adding more cement and everything. So we keep our natural ditches. So I just hope that consulting with neighborhoods, if it's not wanted by the majority, then we shouldn't be putting in if it's against the wishes of the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just really quickly, we had a presentation from the Older Adults Committee committing to look at our city design through a lens of, what helps older adults and people of all ages. I wouldn't let my kids walk in the middle of the street because they're in danger of getting hit by a car because cars cannot see them. If we want older adults to be able to stay in their homes longer, they need sidewalks. They also can't walk on the street. So I just think that it's important to reiterate that, especially on an evening when we heard a presentation that talked about that, and we committed to that priority.
Thank you, Councillor. Not seeing any other names on the list. I'll just add my own 2 cents very briefly. I understand the concerns and the thoughts been raised. If the community doesn't want it, and that's fair, but I think sometimes we forget the fact that when we're building the community, we're not just building it for the people that live there right now. you're also building it for people who are going to move in there in the future. And I will say, as someone who lives next door to a neighbor who's on a mobility device and has a wife who has a mobility device and has a mother-in-law who has a mobility device and knows a lot of people with MS, cerebral palsy, folks with autism, when you don't have sidewalks, you actually make the roads incredibly dangerous for a lot of those people. And I get that you want to park your fourth vehicle in the driveway. I understand that. But it can be a very frustrating discussion when we forget about the people or just stop caring about the people that actually need some sort of accessible way to get around. And I've said in the past, like, maybe we have to adjust the way we're looking at it. Maybe one sidewalk in a neighborhood will suffice, especially when you have neighborhoods that have no sidewalks. But there are people in this community that simply don't feel comfortable being pedestrians. They don't feel like it's safe for them to actually leave their homes. And you are forcing people then to rely on personal vehicles, which I will also say for people with accessibility challenges can also be very, very difficult. And that's why I think the Accessibility Committee, long before I ever came on council, came forward with a policy that identified having to have sidewalks on both sides of the street. Again, I think if council wants to revisit that policy, that's the desire of council, and we should do that. But I hope councilors remember the numerous members of their community that don't feel safe otherwise navigating roads without some form of accessible sidewalk for them to feel a little bit more safe. Councilor Harris, for a second time.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what you just commented on. That's not actually what I was saying. We've had
Councilor, it wasn't a comment necessarily to you.
Well, it seemed like it was directed to what I was saying. So what I was saying is there's been numerous times that we've designed sidewalks that actually don't connect to anything.
Yep.
And they literally stop on one side of the road, even though there's another sidewalk. And there's been numerous times where there's a sidewalk on one side of the road, and then we want to put a sidewalk on the other side and destroy all the 100-year-old trees. So that's what I was saying. Use a little common sense. That's all.
I believe a moment ago I actually said that there's a reasonable case to only having sidewalks on one side of the road, but if you want to take it personally, that is totally your prerogative. Look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Kushner. Yes. Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
Councillor Mako.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
And Mayor Sisko.
Yes.
It's carried.
Item 6.7 is Planning and Building Services by Law Enforcement and Licensing Driving School Traffic Alleviation Efforts. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this one? Councillor Stevens and Councillor Townsend. And speakers to the motion. Councillor Stevens?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you for the report on that. We've had numerous complaints, the Dorchester area and Meredith and all that, and because of the driving testing, that's one of their major test routes, and then so all the driving schools use it as well. So it is very congested during the day, and the residents have complaint. I understand the study and having to add another bylaw officer and everything, and maybe that's not feasible at this time. But what I would just like to keep, what I would like to see staff do is maybe just continue maybe monitoring and studying if there's a lot more complaints, if there's a lot more accidents happening in the area, then maybe we will have to come back to this, and maybe we will have to issue a bylaw. There is some and if you read the report, there is in other cities have said that, hey, you can't do it here anymore, and they've had to move on. So I would like to see that maybe some of these driver companies would maybe go somewhere else, and then I don't really think that's not really our prerogative, or how we can't really send a letter asking them to be good neighbors and maybe not go there without a bylaw. But I mean, if we could do something like that, that would be nice, but they don't have to listen to us, so therefore there's no meat in the game. But just to keep monitoring it and hope hopefully it doesn't get any worse, because if we do, then we will have to do anything. And on that side note is that as well, we've had a lot of complaints lately. People are really speeding through there, and I don't know if there's been a traffic study done recently, if that's something that can be added to this, or as a new request, or something, just to kind of monitor that as well, because there's been a lot of complaints of speeding and not going, we get it in all the neighborhoods, and they don't stop at stop signs and everything else, but now that Dorchester's opened up, I don't know why, but people seem to want to cut through there to get to Carlton Street. It makes no sense, but they do it. So that's, can I ask for that, or is that something later on?
So what are you asking for specifically?
Has there ever been a traffic study in recent years since that street's been opened up, or could we do one, just to, if traffic's too heavy for that area now?
So
Or just,
we'll look to Mr. Martuccio.
I'm not aware of a recent study. I'd have to go back and check, but that is a request that we could put forward to staff.
so I'll wait to hear back and then see what comes up.
Okay. All right. I see no other comments or questions. I'll look to the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Stevens? Counselor Townsend?
Yes.
Counselor Dodge?
Yes.
Counselor Williamson?
Yes, go Habs.
Counselor Ratzlaff?
Yes.
Counselor Phillips?
Yes.
Counselor Miller?
Yes.
Counselor McPherson?
Yes.
Counselor Mako? Yes. Counselor Lindell?
Yes.
Counselor Kushner?
Yes.
Counselor Harris?
Yes.
And Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
That's carried.
All right. Committee and task force minutes, 12.1, the minutes to receive. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Counselor McPherson, Counselor Phillips, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Closed session, we have 2 items closed session, economic development and tourism services, realty services, property matter, disposition at 35 Junkin Street. We also have Office of the Mayor, Chief Administrative Officer contract. Can I have a counselor to move the motion to go in close? Counselor Townsend, Counselor Lindell, all those in favor? Opposed? In we go. All right, we are back. Item 14.1, property matter disposition of 35 Junkin Street. Moving it is Councillor Townsend, seconding it is Councillor Stevens. I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Yep.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Mako. Yes. Councillor Lindell. Yes. Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson. Councillor Williamson. Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
That's carried.
And then item 14.2, Chief Administrative Officer contract, that the mayor proceed as directed in closed session. Moving it is Councillor Harris. Seconding it is Councillor McPherson. I'll look to the clerk to call, oh, sorry, no, I'm going to take Councillor McPherson off. It can be Councillor Kushner. I'm going to look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner. Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
Councillor Mako. Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson. Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
That's carried.
Can I have a councillor to move the bylaws A to I? Councillor McPherson, Councillor Ratzlaff. All those in favor? Oppose? What? Save and accept H. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Additional bylaw A, be read a first time, considered and passed, related to the sale of certain lands to Habitat for Humanity Niagara. Mover and seconder, I'm going to go with Councillor Townsend and Stevens again. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Adjournment, who wants it? Councillor Kushner gets it tonight. Councillor Stevens, in favor? Opposed? Good night.